I was a little worried that I might not be a member anymore, but I'm good for April 1st. What you sent me is...
Oh, excellent.
I had to
Did you
check.
submit your letter?
It's
I
always
haven't
good
yet.
to
I
check.
need to.
Yeah.
Yep.
You should do it tonight.
Yeah, it's...
Handwritten.
Well, I wanted to make sure that I was still a member.
Just write it on the
so
back
it's
of
in
this.
here.
Yeah, it looks like you're all good to go for tonight.
For now.
Yep. Yeah, you got 2 more meetings to go, actually.
How did I... Oh. Where's my cell phone? In my hand.
The time.
It's like, where are my glasses? Can't find my glasses.
Boy tonight.
Oh, no. So,
Okay.
do we know why Rebecca's missing? She isn't sick again.
I don't know, actually. So lots of last-minute communications as well, huh?
Yes, yep. If anyone didn't see, there's a few letters that have been submitted since the emails went out, and those are in the pile.
So not only is there a lot of stuff to do, there's going to be a lot of last-minute reading as well.
Are you willing to be the chair?
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
expedite that process?
Actually, Rebecca's here if she wants to.
What's that?
So you were secretary and Rebecca was vice chair, right? Well, we'll see. Do the same thing again.
I'm willing.
All right. Looks that way.
Can Rebecca hear us? Oh, she can. Are you willing to be vice chair? Just give me a thumbs up.
Sure, as long as John.
Okay.
We can get this sorted out in a few minutes. It's right up there on the agenda anyway.
I guess the mics work. That's good.
Okay. Good evening. It is 6:30, so I'll call this meeting of the Planning Board to order of March 16th, and I'll begin by reading the roll. Seems more amplified than usual.
I know, it's loud.
Rebecca?
I'm here.
I'm trying to remember the verbiage on this. Is it not practically feasible for you to attend in person this evening?
It is not.
Okay. Phil?
Here.
Neil?
Present.
Mike? Here. Mark, I believe, said he was going to be late this evening. Susan?
Here.
Myself, present. Alternates, Zach Terrell. Michael Bouchard.
Present.
And Peter Julia, I believe, is excused as well. I think that, so we are missing one member who will be coming late, and Mike, you will also be up on the other side of the table later today.
Yes, I'll be dismissed.
Would it be
You
easier?
can seat Mike for the election
The first
of
hearing,
officers
and the
until
first
he needs
hearing,
to
yeah.
recuse himself.
I could.
Or until
So
the other
I
member.
will seat you as a voting member of the board for the first half of this meeting until such time as either you recuse yourself or Mark arrives, I suppose.
Thank you, Chair.
So up first on our agenda is the election of officers, which happens every year in our first meeting after town meeting.
I'm going to nominate John Chris to be chair and Rebecca to be vice chair. To get the ball rolling.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion to nominate myself as chair and Rebecca as vice chair. Is there any further discussion?
I think you've both done a great job so far, and I'd like to see you both continue.
Thank you. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Without a delay, or are you?
Actually, do we need to do a roll call if she's remote? If it's only one remote?
That's it.
Do you remember the rules, Rebecca?
When we are all remote, we need a roll call vote. I mean, it couldn't hurt, just to make sure, I suppose.
Were there any dissenters?
There were not.
Okay. You're the chair. You can declare it by unanimous consent.
There were no nays? Okay. So the motion passes, and I am the chair, and Rebecca is vice chair. And we also need to elect a non-recording secretary.
I'll nominate
I'll make a
Phil.
motion that we nominate Phil
I think,
as the non-recording secretary.
okay. You want to second
Second
that?
that.
Okay,
I'm
so,
sorry.
so we have there's a little bit of delay. So we have a motion and a second to elect Phil as the non-recording secretary. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, Phil, you are elected non-recording secretary.
I abstained, but that's fine.
Okay. Oh, sorry, abstentions.
You're good. Thank you.
All right, so on with our business then. So, review of minutes from our March 9th meeting, which was just last week. One thing I did notice was that Neil's given name was not included. He was simply listed as MacGyver.
That's okay.
Otherwise, I didn't notice anything.
Me neither.
Neil McIver in the present, in the role. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written,
Second.
Okay, so we have a,
with the modification that we include Neil's name in the roll call,
even over his objection.
even over his objection.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the minutes of March 9th are approved. Have there been any communications received by the board? And I should probably add to that, not related to the applications on the table this evening, which we will get to.
Yes, that's correct. There have been several communications received, but they are pertaining to the two applications, as well as a communication about a later item on the agenda requesting if a planning board member would like to participate in the town's upcoming economic development project in coordination with the university. But no further communication beyond those items.
Okay, thank you. So up next, we have applications and public hearings. Beginning with our first one, a continuation of a public hearing regarding the Frontenac development, and I believe we have not received any further information at this point. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, I heard from the applicant on this, who said that he would not be having anything for this evening, but expects that he might in either April or May.
Either April or May. So we're still unclear on that.
Correct.
We do have a public hearing scheduled, so it is currently 6:37, and I will reopen the public hearing. And if anybody has anything they'd like to say about this continuation of this public hearing about the Frontenac development, you're free to come up, identify yourself, and say what you have to say. And obviously understanding that there's no new information on our side.
And the applicant isn't here.
And the applicant is not here. I do not believe. It's a very busy room, though. No, okay.
Hi there.
Hi.
Dan Marion, 19 Point of View Drive, talked to you last month. First of all, congratulations, you, John and Rebecca, on your reappointments.
Thank you.
My wife and I attended our very first New Hampshire town meeting last night, very interesting. And when we got back to the house, I started talking to her about what we want to talk about tonight. And I was in 2 minutes where I got the rolling eyes from my wife. And I said, what's the matter? She says, it's way too much detail, Dan. So you can thank her for being prompt on that, and this will be a 45-second discussion.
Okay.
Okay. I did receive a letter from Mr. Hiltz's attorney, Mr. Brian Ray, and that was dated March 6th. That came as an email. And when it comes in an email, there's an attachment, it's a PDF, and I'm looking at it, it's coming from an attorney, and I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? You know, what am I getting sued for? What cease and desist letter am I getting? To my surprise, it was a really nice letter, and I have a copy several copies that I'm passing out. What Mr. Hilt is saying in that letter, a couple things he's saying, based on what his lawyer conveyed, is that he's still the owner of the road, still the owner of the sewer system, and he intends to make sure that everything is done according to plan, to have the dedication to the appropriate authorities, the town, as well as the water and sewer district. So we're very, very happy as a community to receive a letter like that, and I did pass it out to the community. There was a couple of spins on that. Everybody was cautiously optimistic. That's the way I titled it back to Mr. Ray in an email. We're cautiously optimistic because he said all the right things, and it was nice to read that, but there was not a lot of detail. It was just basically high level, this is where we're at, and this is where we want to be. And what the community really wants is more detail in terms of an update. Even though he has nothing to provide in terms of as-built plans, for instance, that's the thing that you guys are really looking to have, he can at least give us an indication of where he is with the as-builts. Where is he with the punch list items and things like that? So I sent an email back to his attorney, and here's a copy of that,
Thank you.
asking if he would attend this meeting, and he's not here. So my request, or our request as a community is, can the board or duly elected staff of the board, can you reach out to Mr. Hilt to see if he can come to the next meeting, just to give us an update from his perspective and get it on record? That's the request, okay?
So even if there's no material update, to still provide like a verbal update on where we stand?
Yeah, the material update would be 100% as-built plan, for
Yeah.
instance, for delivery. But an update of the as-built plans is we're 80% done. The reason why we're not 20% done is because of the snow on the roads and things like that, whatever the reasons are, as well as things like stop signs and things like that. So what we're looking for is a little more specificity in terms of what's going on with each of those punch list items, as well as the as-built plans. That would be very, very helpful, instead of us waiting week after week, month after month, not knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay?
I don't know if you want to speak to that or not, Joseph, at this point.
No, if the board would like me to send a message requesting that,
I mean, we can request that he comes.
At this point, we really have no authority to demand those things. I mean, he's
It's not a demand, though.
right. I know we can request it.
It's just a
It's
request.
a good faith request to
Yeah.
like have him come and talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did request him to attend this meeting in the email that has been passed out, but he hasn't attended, and
Yeah.
I'm looking for another avenue
Yeah.
in terms of being able to help us out. But thanks for your time.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak at this point about the Frontenac development? Okay. Does the board have anything we'd like to say besides making a motion for continuance?
The only thing I'd like to say is that, I think we are, in general, we're supportive of doing what we can to facilitate the process of the town considering acceptance of this road, but at this point, the ball is really not in our court. We've notified the developer that in order, he's aware that we've requested an as-built, and I think the select board has been in support of that as well. There were a few details that were not built to spec after the plan was recorded, and that those details should be updated. And once we have that, that is one step of what the select board has in order to accept the road. But I appreciate the continued, personally, I appreciate the continued interest from the residents on the road. It shows this is an important issue.
Yeah, and we all do want to get this resolved.
Yes, very much so.
So I will just note that our next public meeting business meeting is April 20th. Anyone wants to make a motion?
I move that we continue the public hearing for Frontenac development to April 20th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue this meeting to April 20th, which is the public hearing for the Frontenac development. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay, so moved. We will continue this public hearing on April 20th. And Joseph, you could just send out a friendly reminder that members of the public would, like a kind of good faith
Update from the developer.
update if he's not ready even with all the rest of the materials.
Can do that.
All right. Keep track of all my paper, a lot of paperwork this evening. So up next, we have an application and public hearing related to a subdivision at 793 Texas Hill Road, Stephen Ball. Owner and applicant is Mountain Stream Properties. The PID number is 234-009-000. The lot size is 3.55 acres, and it's in the agricultural zone. So this is an application for a 3-lot subdivision of the property just described. The proposal is to divide one parcel of 3.55 acres into 3 lots, approximately 1.0, 1.275, and 1.275 acres, each served by an on-site well and septic. So just for everyone here, the applicant as well as the public, just to describe the process a little bit, our first step is to decide upon the acceptance of the application as complete, to hold a public hearing. In the process, they'll also hear from the applicant, and to do our own findings of fact about whether or not this applicant can be approved, and then finally to consider approval or discontinue the hearing if we deem that's necessary. And yeah, so is the applicant present? Would you like to say a few words about the application?
Either the applicant or his representative.
Or your representative, yeah.
Who would ever like to present?
Thank you, Phil.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Ball. I'm the owner of Mountain Stream Properties. I'm a Plymouth resident. I live at 579 Texas Hill Road, not too far from where this piece of property is. I acquired this piece of property last year, a residential sale, and I hired Mark Vanderhayden from Vanderhayden Surveying to see what I could do with this property, and you guys have the plan, and Mark and I are here to answer any questions that you may have on the plan or the application.
Okay, thank you. So, as I just mentioned, our first goal is to see if this application is complete and discern that. And I know we have a few letters here which we did not have a chance to read yet, and I think some of them even pertain to the completeness of the application. I would like to read these, which I know it doesn't create great suspense for the public to listen with reading. But is there anything you want to say about these correspondences before we take a look at them?
No, not at this time. 2 of the letters are addressed to the planning board, and I would note that one is addressed to the state of New Hampshire with CC to the planning board. So just making sure the board can
Yes, I
make
see
note
that,
of
yeah.
the different, between these 3 letters. But all 3 of these were recently received and pertain to the applications.
And this one is from... Okay. No test pit data is provided. Fire radius, setbacks from the over drainage from culverts, effective well zones. Yep, okay. So I guess part of our work, I mean, looking at some of these letters, is to determine whether the application is complete. There are issues listed in these letters that would indicate otherwise. And we'll have to determine if the application is complete. And if it is, then we can address some of these issues in a public hearing, if we get that far.
So, John,
Yes, Mike?
initially, this subdivision that this lot was part of, my family trust was in a butter. I don't believe we're in a butter to this, but I still feel very comfortable in having an unbiased
Okay,
approach or look at it.
okay. Were you on the abutter list?
I don't believe I am.
No, I don't believe you were.
I'm probably 200 feet from it.
Okay. Thank you for acknowledging that.
This map that we're looking at, was this by Elwin Maycomber, or did you do this?
Excuse me?
This map that we're looking at with the three
I'm
lots,
sure what map you're talking about, because Ellen did do a survey. That's my survey.
that's your survey?
I have larger copies too, if the board would please.
It's okay.
I'm okay with this.
Does he have a
one.
larger copy that shows more lots
Sure.
along the road? And does it show more or just the exact?
This is a full-size copy.
The larger version of the same one, yeah.
Is this a stream? Is this a stream that you're showing? This wet area, you're talking very poorly soil, very poorly drained soil?
No, it's not a stream.
It's not a
Very
stream.
poorly drained soil, and there's some poorly drained soils mapped out, yes.
So before we get too far into the details of possible impacts and such, how do we feel about the completeness of this application?
Given the, unless we have septic designs on file, I think the lack of a 4,000 square foot area on Lot 1 gives me a little concern. If the 4,000 square foot area were shown, I would feel more confident that state subdivision approval would be granted, but I suppose if the application of state subdivision has been made, we could accept the application and consider the application, or, wait for
Yeah.
those permits to come in. Wait for,
So we haven't received those responses yet, right?
Correct. And if
Okay.
I may, relative to a comment that was made, submit these as formal requests for waivers, one for the 4K area, and one for the
Okay.
the lower radius.
mm,
And I can explain the 4K area and the lack of the full square footage, if that would help, but.
Okay.
as far
And so
as-
even if we give you the,
Report it to the,
Okay.
report it to the ES.
Would you like me to read the first waiver?
oh, go ahead, yeah.
So the first request for a waiver is in reference to showing a 4,000 square foot area on proposed Lot 1. It says, relative to proposed Lot 1, we're hereby formally requesting a waiver of the 4,000 square foot septic area as required to be shown on the plan for each lot. As part of the NHDES subdivision application, a septic system design meeting the design requirements has been submitted in lieu of the 4,000 square foot area. By way of explanation, the 4,000 square foot area at the state subdivision level is assuring the lot will support a septic system and a replacement system. By approving a design, it will achieve the same intent. Furthermore, regulations allow, and most commonly is noted on the approved design, that to rebuild, replace in the same location. We therefore believe this waiver is in keeping with the spirit and intent of the 4,000 square foot requirement. We do the same with the wall radius.
Sure, thank you.
All right, and then
So this is in lot 1.
it is.
Yes, yes.
I guess I have some hesitation there, accepting that as a waiver, just because that lot is pretty much pinned as small as it can be. It's 1 acre. It's got 150. I'm gonna turn my camera off. So hang on a sec. All right, can you hear me? Okay. Just because that that lot is pinned at 150 feet frontage, it's really is kind of as narrow as it can be and as small as it can be. So I don't know. I have some concerns.
Sure.
Seems
Do-
that
do you wanna
lot
continue?
has- that
Yeah, go
lot
ahead.
has the most amount of hydric soils, too.
Yes. But, I mean, do our zoning ordinance or subdivision standards address the quality of land being subdivided? Or is it simply an acre? It's not an acre exclusive of wetlands or?
No, I mean, as long as you meet all the other requirements.
Right. I
Yeah,
mean, it meets the frontage and it meets the minimum acreage and
You
it,
have to have your drainage class of your soil, and you have to have your slopes. But I think
And-
DES would determine whether or not you could approve a system on that lot.
right.
yeah.
I mean, if they've submitted a plan for a system that.
Well, it would have to
is-
pass the review.
Right.
Do
My
have-
understanding was that if a plan was submitted for a lot, that would, in effect, replace the need to show a 4,000 square
Mhm.
foot area. But,
So I mean, the question becomes, we don't have an acceptance from DES at this point.
True.
And are we willing to accept this as complete and deal with that as part of the next stage of the process? Or are we not accepting the waiver? Request for a waiver?
that's, well,
Yeah.
I
Kind
guess
of,
should we read the other waiver request and
Okay.
mull it over? Okay, so the second waiver request, this is regarding proposed lots 2 and 3. We are hereby formally requesting a waiver of the protective well radii to be located entirely on lot. As part of the DES subdivision regulations, it's been so noted on the plans that there will be easements for the portions of the well radius for each lots 2 and 3, which will extend across the proposed lot line. By way of explanation, the protective well radius is established to ensure that a well is sufficiently protected from the placement of a septic system and its associated components. The on-lot requirement is to ensure that the lot has control over the well's protection and the well is fully protected. By establishing deeded easements, it will achieve the same intent. The areas outside of the lot will be legally precluded from placement of a septic system and any components that would not otherwise be within the protective radius. We therefore believe this waiver is in keeping with the spirit and intent of the on-lot requirement.
So I think in theory, if we got to the approval stage, that could be a condition of approval.
Yeah. Joseph, do you want to put those in the file since they're the only copies we have?
Thank you.
Thank you. Considering that the well radius, the two well radiuses are somewhat overlapping and of the same intent, I think, the only potential downside is that by overlapping, if one well were to draw a significant amount of water, they might affect the production of the other well, but considering that they're in wet areas, that's probably less of an issue.
Monadnock Herman soils are well drained.
Are they?
They're well drained soils.
But these are going to be bedrock wells too, which
Oh, yeah.
presumably is, well, presumably they're bedrock wells, but they could be if they need to be.
So I would make a motion that the plan is complete,
Application?
application is complete.
Should we have some
I don't
conditions
really
on that with
trust
regard to?
websites.
No, we're not approving, just
Okay.
accepting it as complete.
Yeah.
Okay,
They've got
So we can get to the next stage where we actually talk about approval.
okay, I'll second that.
Monadnock Herman.
So we have a motion and a
Soil.
second to accept this application as complete. Is there any further discussion?
I did use the word, did I use the word accept, or did I say?
You
approve?
said accept.
Accept, okay.
Yeah. That's the step we're on.
Okay. I was giving a little extra time, 'cause I know Rebecca has a little bit of a lag sometimes on Zoom right now. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, abstentions? Okay, so this application has been accepted as complete. All right, so this is where we move on to determining whether or not we can approve the application. And remember, at this point, starting a few months ago, we're doing findings of fact, just to keep that in mind. And we will shortly open up a public hearing. For now, though, I'll just ask the board if we have any more concerns or questions before opening a public hearing.
I think that, well, I don't really like web soil survey when it comes to a site-specific application. It's more general, and they have large amount of hydric soils, poorly drained and very poorly drained soils, and I think that they should be classified. And I know that septic designers have the right to delineate wetlands, but I think there should be more analysis of the soils on this lot, because this 1 acre lot especially is really, really tight. And, I just think that we really should have a higher standard.
Okay. Any further comments or questions from the board for the applicant or for one another before we?
I would like to note that we do have a couple letters
We do.
from, it appears that they're from abutters.
I was thinking we might be able to get into during our public hearing as well, if anybody can speak to them specifically who's present today. We do raise some serious concerns that definitely need to be looked at.
Open the public.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought.
So it's currently 7:03, and I will open the public hearing. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak to this application, please come up to the podium or lectern and state your name and whatever it is you'd like to say. Yes.
Looks like I'm first. My name's Todd Moore. I live at 812 Texas Hill Road. I'm here with my wife, Irene Grace Garvey. We are the authors of a couple of those letters. Apologize for the late hour getting them here. We've been banging away at them, and tonight was the deadline. So don't mean to cause any hang-ups on schedules or anything like that. That's just the way things worked out. We live just down the road from the proposed subdivision, and I forgot to thank you for your time serving on the board and hearing the comments tonight. This property has changed times, a few hands in recent years, and it's always nerve-wracking being in the neighborhood, not knowing what's going to happen. We're comforted to know that it's in Mr. Ball's hands. We've met him just a few times, don't know him well, but he and his family seem like good people. The project that he's already done on Texas Hill Road and the contractors he's used, I think it's apparent to us that he cares about what he does, is trying to do something he's proud of. That said, we have some pretty specific concerns with the proposal here. We have a lot of detail, about as much detail as we could put down in writing. So I'm just going to hit some high points. A couple of them you've already brought up. Wetlands, there are wetlands on the property, and I won't belabor it, but in particular, if you look at Lot 1, again, didn't have 4,000 feet, did a design. If you look at that design, it is at the 10-foot setback with Miss Laby's property to the north, at the 10-foot setback from Texas Hill Road, and then it is exactly at the wetland setbacks to the east and south. So that system cannot move 1 foot in any direction. And also, if that wetlands line is 1 foot different, say to the west, that invalidates that design. So in that respect, we request that, a very robust, obviously wetlands delineation is very important at this site. We want to make sure that everybody agrees that that's where the line is and that's what the design can be based on. Well radius, I think that there's some copy of a waiver, I think, submitted to the state. That's good. We want to note that the town of Plymouth subdivision regulations explicitly state that well radius shall be confined within its own lot. So that is, in this case, as we know, they're proposed to be overlapping. The wells for each lot, again, it's a difficult site. There's a lot going on. The wetlands really are a challenge, I think, for developing. Each of the wells are located, on these 11 by 17, I'm guessing 5 to 10 feet from wetlands. Some of them, on 2 sides, maybe almost 3 sides. Drilling wells is messy business, using big equipment. We'd like the applicant to at least explain how they propose to put wells in those locations without impacting wetlands and or getting a permit for the impacts. Texas Hill Road drainage. So this section of Texas Hill Road slopes down all the way from where Cummins Hill turns off down to Reed Brook. And it's one continuous slope, so it picks up stormwater all along. There are very few places to discharge that. The culvert that's shown under Texas Hill Road at proposed lot 3, that is part of that drainage system, and it discharges onto lot 3. And currently, that discharge just kind of opens up and overland flow gently across that sloping to the east across that lot. If you look at the way that the lot is proposed, the most likely place for a house is directly in line with that discharge. So that will be a headache for somebody. We recommend that the applicant acknowledge that in the application, accept that condition, describe how they're going to manage that water, and also we recommend that if the town does not have it already, that it negotiate, a permanent, clear right to maintain that culvert's function in perpetuity as part of any, agreement for development of the property. We'd also like to mention dust. It's just more of an acknowledgement thing. This section of road is unpaved. Because of this site and the wetlands and the constraints, you're very likely going to be forced to put your development, your driveways, your houses, your cars will be parked close to the road. It is dusty. It will be, all summer, the houses, cars, whatever, are going to be covered with dust. We think that the applicant should acknowledge and accept that condition now to prevent future headaches and confrontations between the town and occupants of the property. Did you want to mention something about traffic? Sure.
Grace Garvey, for the record. One of the things Todd didn't mention, but is in our letter to the town, is about increased traffic. As proposed, this is essentially 6 dwelling units. This section of Texas Hill Road is actually a non-standard town width. We actually went out and measured it the other day. It's like 18 feet wide. It's so common for that to actually become, in that section of Texas Hill Road, a single lane. People have to pull over mud season, pull over in snow coverage. As near as we can tell, from the Plymouth Traffic Impact Design Guidelines, that we should plan for 48 additional trips per day from the proposed subdivision. And based on the traffic impact design guidelines that the town has adopted, that would be 8 trips per unit pursuant to the Plymouth subdivision articles. So we just see that as being more impacting to the road and more difficult for the town to maintain because there's going to be additional impact. And also just safe passage because it's such a narrow area. So we just wanted to outline that as well. I also just want to say personally, I'm disappointed to see that they're already asking for waivers. I take exception to that. I feel like this plan is just too much for this 3.5 acre lot. I was a wetland scientist certified for 25 years, and I can contest to the fact that this is a wet lot with jurisdictional wetlands beyond what I believe are indicated here. So that's just what I want to go on record saying.
May I ask a question? When you say 6 units, could you clarify?
I'm sorry, 6 dwelling units. So I believe there's 2, they're duplexes, correct? There's 2 6-bedroom duplexes and 1 4-bedroom.
At this point, we're discussing the subdivision, and we're not really considering any potential development, which would have to go through its own process.
Sure, but we already know that about it because we've been looking at the subdivision, the subsurface application as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that was just provided for context because, the town planning documents say you estimate the amount of traffic based on dwelling units. So that's all that was used for.
Okay.
So I think we just want to wrap it up. Saying I think it's a challenging lot as it is as a 3-acre lot. It's going to be a real challenge to get 3 lots, 3 buildings, 3 septics, and 3 wells there. I'm going to say that our goal is not to quash development of that lot, and definitely we don't want to push Mr. Ball away from being that developer. We're happy with that situation. We just want to make sure that at a minimum, whatever goes on there, meets the minimum state and local standards, and where we can prevent future headaches for the town, future occupants, and the neighbors. And I just also want to note that Mr. Ball's reached out to us because he knew he had concerns in the last week a couple of times, offering to meet and talk about it. It's been crazy busy. We didn't have the opportunity. We hope now that the application's here, the concerns are out there, that we'll be able to work with everybody to get a successful project. So thanks for your time, and again, more detail in writing, and I think our contact information there as well.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this application?
My name is Jessica Sharon, and I live on Texas Hill. I live on the dirt road part of Texas Hill. It's a little further down. My family has been up there for about 45 years. We have 3 homes on Texas Hill. Over the years, I have watched as traffic has increased and increased and increased, not so much because of the people who live on that section of road, but because it's increasingly being used for other homes that are being built on other small roads in Plymouth or around the Plymouth area. The dust on Texas Hill Road has become a huge problem. I increasingly, and other people have been calling the town to put salt on the road in the summer because I can't actually drive my car when I go to leave in the summer. I have to hose my windshield off. There's so much dirt on it. I have concerns about 3 lots going in there and increasing the salt use and how that affects the wetland there. I'm familiar with the property. I've been here a long time. I walk up there often. And in 2018, we passed a Bill of Rights at our town meeting here that said that we had an obligation to protect the water in Plymouth and our wetlands and the water below the surface. When I drove by there tonight, I could see water sitting on top of the land, especially that lot that you were talking about. I have concerns about it and the quality of our life, the people who already live on Texas Hill. You know, I realize that we have to make progress, that things change, but I'm very concerned about myself and my family's quality of life up there and what it's going to be like with the increased traffic. And it just seems like a lot for that one little spot. Thanks. Thanks for listening.
Anyone else like to speak? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Becky Labby. I'm the abutter. I'm at 761 Texas Hill Road, so immediately to the north and also the east, I believe. And actually just happened across these photographs that illustrate a little bit of what happens when there's heavy rains and the culverts fail. This is just a number of feet. This isn't the exact same shot, but it shows the same piece of property, and when the culvert fails, and
Can I ask a question about the photos? Are these
Certainly.
on your property or are these
Yes.
on the subject
Yes,
property?
yes, and you cannot quite see his property in frame, but it's a number of feet from not, I guess you could increase it to maybe 10 yards, maybe 11 yards. It's the lower part of my pasture, well, was my pasture, I'm sorry, and so I'm the immediate abutter to the north. There was also a natural pond standing in what we used, considered our pasture. And while it may have grown in, I think, you know, what they call it, berms, the land has encroached. It was spring fed. The spring is still there.
Any members of the board have any questions? Follow-ups?
For the applicant, or for the,
No, for
for the
the
abutter? I don't.
Yeah, no.
But thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry, that natural pond was on the land that's being considered for subdivision.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
Do you still have the pictures there, Mike, or?
Oh, there's pictures right there.
Oh, okay. And any other members of the public like to speak at this point?
Oh, sure.
I'm the butter to the south, downhill side. I just moved to town, just built a new house there. I think that what Steve's done up the road has been great, and taking some derelict houses and renovating them, making them nice, and that is a derelict house right now, although I guess it was the oldest house in town at one point. And from that area, I guess there was like 15 houses in that whole neighborhood in the old days. Anyway, I'm one of them. I built my house on an old foundation that was there. And my only concern is that water flowing downhill towards my house doesn't affect my well, and road quality, neighborhood quality. I just got a call from the school. My kids can't pick up the bus in front of the house anymore. They have to walk up the hill in the mud because of the mud. But anyway, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask where your kids have to go to get the bus now? Which intersection?
Cummings Hill.
Okay, thank you.
2/10 of a mile, they can handle it, but.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else? Yes. Oh. Back to the microphone.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Piekowitz, and I just recently, about 4 months ago, purchased a piece of property, 10 acres, right on the corner of Texas Hill. So I am in a butter to the north of this proposed development. I'm new to town. I'm going to be building a home there in the next year. The reason I chose this area and wanted to build in this area because of the country setting and homes being spread apart. Privacy, nature, and that's what lured me to buy this property. So I am very surprised that there's an intent to build a small development on 3 acres. Almost every other home in the area has at least 2.5 acres. I didn't do a lot of research. Again, I'm new. I'll do a little more research. But there's one home there, and I would, if there was one new home there, that would make perfect sense to me. But to create an investment in the property out in the country like this doesn't make sense to me. And I realize it's progress, and small towns aren't going to stay small towns forever. But if this is approved, I just wanted to speak and say that I hope everything is done according to proper standards. It's certainly going to take away from the country setting of that area. And I'm a little confused about it, but again, being new to the area, I just wanted to voice my opinion.
Well, thank you very much for your concern. I mean, just to speak a little bit to our process, I mean, basically, we can judge this application on the basis of our regulations and state regulations and whether all of those are met. And if they are, some of these other factors are less of an issue. Although obviously on a human level, they have a very real impact.
Yeah, and that was the purpose of me coming here tonight, is I realized that there is a process, a legal process that is happening right now. But just purchasing this land 4 months ago, just wanted to voice my personal opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Leon McIntyre, 37 Cummings Hill Road. The traffic up there has gotten horrendous. The road has gotten horrendous. It's kind of like 93. And I don't know how many times we have to call PD for people doing 40, 50 miles an hour down our road. And I don't think it could sustain any more traffic. And especially now they're going to punch another 3 units in. They probably should do a study of the road up there before they go putting another development in. And that's probably all I have to say. But I don't think the road will, as bad as it is, it won't sustain more traffic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more comments? Thank you. Oh.
Hi, I'm Carl Boyce. I live at 253 Cummings Hill. The road is, I drive a 98 Jeep Cherokee four-wheel drive, and I've got to use four-wheel drive now to get up and down the road. And it's only March. I'm dragging mud. The hill cannot accept another 3 units. We've got heavy trucks coming up and down the hill. And I'm less than a half a mile down the road from where these 3 sites are going in. My sister had a horse 20 years ago in that barn that was attached to the house. It's all wet. The whole backyard was wet. We used to have to tie the horse up front for over a month.
Tetley. I live at 21 Bell Road now, but my partner Matt and I are in the process of buying the land that Grace and Todd own now. That is right on Reed Brook, so at the bottom of where that section of Texas Hill drains onto. And I just have a personal testament here. Neil, you asked if the wetland on the map was a stream, and it's not year-round, but it is a seasonal stream, and that stream goes right through what will soon be our property and into Reed Brook. And it runs anytime there's rain in the summer as well. So it might not be a stream up on that property, but I think it is definitely probably a spring. I've wandered all throughout the woods up there, and it's definitely very, very wet. So my concern would primarily be the wetland and preserving that as it is, and request having a more detailed study of that just to make sure we're not going to be, or Steve's not going to be interrupting any of that.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Excuse me. So it sounds like Texas Hill, amongst many of our roads, are an absolute mess. And we all know that. Dust is awful. Mr. Bowler, it's not my decision to say yes or no, but is there any intent now or in the future to make these nonprofits, not for profits, or any other building that wouldn't pay taxes?
I can't speak to what the future is, but that is not my intent.
Sure.
Needs more of a tax base.
Yeah.
But I don't think
Hey,
this is the
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If folks, I can't hear if people aren't talking into the microphone.
And actually, and please try to address your comments through the chair.
Yeah. So I know you can't say that there'll never be an issue later on down the road where those will be non-tax paying properties. I was born in the ag zone, raised in the ag zone, and I understand everyone's concern. Really, I do. But I also think, like, the board said earlier, well, he's on an acre and 150 feet, and that's really the limit. Well, that's the rule. If he hits the rule, that's the rule. If DES says he's good to go, he's good to go. So if we're hitting everything that the state and the town has created in regulations to protect the citizens, yeah, it stinks a lot because I've washed my windshield off with dust before I had to head out. But I think, like, everyone talking about the road and, like, that thing's in horrible condition. Camden just released that $21 million just to fix their dirt roads. I'm not sure what Plymouth's budget is for that, right? Or study is on that right now. That's ridiculous. That's 30 miles of road. It's almost $1 million a mile. So I'm very torn hearing it, but I also sit in the audience and say, if those dwellings are going to bring another tax dollar to this town, I'm sort of in, but I'm not the neighbor up there. I don't have to deal with it every day. So I think our taxes are going up double digits again this year. Like, what's going to happen in 20 years when a 1,200 square foot ranch is $18,000 in taxes? I don't think local local incomes are supporting this. Yeah, I think some people are getting some good raises out there and some people making some decent money, but man, like, I don't know. I feel for every single neighbor that's spoken tonight, and I'm really glad, like, look at the showing of everyone, like, that's concerned about the community. And I sit on the other end saying, man, I want every single tax dollar to come into this town that's going to pay taxes. That's all I have to say. Thank you for hearing me out.
If I can address one of the concerns, potential future use of land after subdivision is not something we have say over.
Well, that's why I can ask it and you can't.
Right,
I can ask
right.
it, but on the board, I can
But
ask it.
honestly, you can ask,
I can
and
ask all day long.
you can ask it of us,
I'm not
but
going to ask it to you because I know the answer, but I can ask that all day.
Well, not all day.
I can. I mean,
you should also understand that the applicant is not obliged to answer questions from
I
the
do.
public.
And you know what? But that's like a police officer asking where you're going. Same exact thing. Same exact thing, Phil. I can ask all day long.
Sure.
Would anyone else like to speak to the application? Yes.
Hi, my name's Clifford Mask. I live in the town. I live down the road, and I'm actually a local builder. And I'm someone who's been involved with the process of looking at this property. As I was approached by Steve, and he had some ideas, and I've also heard the concerns in the neighborhood of taking care of the property and cleaning it up. One of the things I was curious about as a builder, and to address what you said, we should have better standards, et cetera. I know there's issues with the road and the criteria. So what I looked at when Mark asked the questions, looked at the property and said, what would you be able to do with this property? How would you show that? And could you meet the criteria with the town and DES that was proposed and accepted? What happens with it if you can show that, whether it's within a foot or not, if that's what's saying that it's allowed. Like the wells, there's ways around with the wells with the state where you can drive the case foot a certain depth and they can be sealed. So you are allowed a reduction. So there are things that are allowed if you do meet the criteria. One thing, I live here, so I'm looking at development as well. I'm looking at tax base, I'm looking at the opportunity to work, looking at how the town's going to develop, and it's growing. I have increased traffic in my own neighborhood because of builds. I don't like it, but that's what it is. Change is difficult, and one of the things I look at is there's some big words being thrown around here like wetlands. Like everyone keeps saying wetlands, and so that's a big thing. Like when I go to the town, I look at the town maps, and it shows what wetlands are. The state recognizes wetlands. Mark has shown poorly drained soils. Neither the state nor the town has recognized as this being wetland property. And so when you look at the information, what's proposed as state, hey, can we do this? Do we meet the criteria? To address the gentleman that's pointed that out, that's what we're looking to do. And we're looking to do, like, what could we work with here on this property and make the best use of it? If anything, I agree with everyone here about the roads. Yeah, they're a challenge. And I'm around town all the time, and when I talk to the road agents, they actually prefer to maintain gravel roads. They hate pavement. And I feel like that road is one of the most highly maintained roads throughout the season. They're constantly out there. They do a great job. Drainage, yeah, drainage is an issue. So on any road that you go down, drainage is an issue. So you're gonna bring awareness to the whole thing. That I think the bigger issue is that a lot of people have concern with dust and drainage, and that's going to be a town road issue. But that gets on to being separate. Those are a few things I just wanted to point out, looking at the development and what Mark's come up with. And I know everyone wants to do right by everyone, and Steve's looking at this property like, to help the town. It helps businesses. It keeps everybody working. It brings awareness to the dust. It brings awareness to the people that have lived around there. But it's funny how when someone gets to build their house or they do something, but then they're not happy with what someone else is doing. you know, it's change. It's difficult, but to say like, I don't like what you're doing over here, you might not like it, but do we meet the criteria? Is that what's going on? And is it really a major issue with it that's going to be detrimental and hurt the town? So if anything, I'm glad it brought awareness, especially to the dust and maintenance of the roads. So thank you.
Thank you. And this is for everyone quickly, to speak to the broad issue of whether or not we can talk about something all night. As per our bylaws, we do have a 3-minute rule on comments per person, which could be flexible about, of course, but yes.
Grace Garvey again for the record. Just to respond to something I just heard Cliff say, if you could actually do what is being proposed on this lot, you would not be asking for waivers already. I just want to point that out. Secondly, there has been no wetland delineation done on this property. Are the soils enough for the planning board? I guess that's up to you guys. But there has been no formal wetland delineation. And this is for a 6-bedroom duplex on one, a 6-bedroom duplex on the next lot, and a 4-bedroom duplex. That's 6 dwelling units.
And again, we can't really speak too much to future development as opposed to the subdivision at this point.
Mr. Chairman, just in case.
Yes, please.
Couldn't speak again, I wanted to just.
No, absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, so Mark Van Reyden, surveyor that prepared the plan, and just want to say that whether you know this or not, DES, I'm like their eyes out there and everything, but I've been dealing with them for 40 years, and they go on site, they walk the walk, they look at every test pit, they walk around. Their technical review, which it's under right now, went from submission to technical review. They'll review all the parameters that are presented here and other documents that were provided at the office level. Then they schedule, if, you know, when we deal with those, then they schedule their outside visit. So they go to every single lot, every single test pit, and they walk it. They look at the 4 key areas or the design that was submitted in lieu of that. They do a very thorough review. I'd just like to say that. So what you don't do at the planning board level, you rely on other approvals. That's what you're relying on. So it's not a broad brush rubber stamp by any means.
Thank you.
And can I ask a clarifying question? I don't see a stamp on the plan, but your signature block indicates that you're a licensed land surveyor in New Hampshire. Is that correct?
Other plans with stamps on them.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify.
Licensed land surveyor in 2 states, a septic designer, installer, and.
Okay, thank you.
Can someone tell me, was the answer to that question yes?
Yes, it was. He said he's
Thank you.
if I can paraphrase, he was a licensed land surveyor in New Hampshire and Vermont and a septic designer in both or one?
Just New Hampshire, septic designer.
Septic designer in New Hampshire.
Installer and evaluator.
Designer, installer, and evaluator in New Hampshire.
And we do have the seal on the larger plans. Actually,
Okay.
I didn't notice it was not on the smaller ones.
Yeah, I was looking at the small plan. I didn't realize the larger plan was stamped. Thank you.
Thank you.
My
hearing open for now.
intuition on this is that I'd like to continue the hearing, and I would like to get our summary from staff indicates that the road agent is planning to submit a letter regarding the application. I do think that since this is creating at least 2 new driveways, driveway permits or driveway access is an issue I'd like to hear his perspective on. And I'd also like to hear if there's if state subdivision approval is granted. From my perspective,
That's the DES state subdivision.
yeah, if DES subdivision approval is granted, if it's not granted, and we continue the hearing, it would give the applicant the opportunity to modify their plans if they needed to. Whereas if we
Is that a condition, then it's kind of set in stone.
if we make a decision and issue a conditional approval, and they need to change the plan, then they need to reapply, re-notify everyone. So my inclination is to continue the hearing.
I have the same inclination.
We done the
since
public hearing?
We are in public hearing currently, I guess. I should have waited. Or we can, how about this? I'll move that we continue the public hearing till April 20th.
Second.
And then, and anyone here, this serves as notice that the hearing would be continued.
If we approve it.
If we approve this.
Is there any further discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
So just to be clear on, for the applicant, on what we'd be looking for then, so you mentioned driveway access, it's the DES subdivision approval.
I'm curious to know if our road agent has feedback.
Okay, the road agent, yeah.
That's not incumbent on the applicant to provide.
I think we should make a site visit.
I think that's a good idea. That's not uncommon for us to do. I mean, we don't see that many subdivisions, but given the question of land,
the condition.
Would the applicant be receptive to hosting a site walk with the planning board?
Absolutely.
We would have to.
Then we have to talk about. Then we have to talk about scheduling.
Right.
Could we do it before our next business meeting, which would?
Or I mean, what about like 5:30 on April 20th?
Or
immediately in advance of the meeting.
Well, that's what I was saying, like right before our next business meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the 20th or the 19th?
I thought we had continued our previous hearing to April 20th.
Oh, let me just
An hour before the meeting.
April.
Should give us
Oh,
time.
it is the 20th. You're right. Yeah. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was the 19th or 20th.
Would a site walk at 5:30 on April 20th work for you?
I'll make it work.
Okay.
That's what pleases
And
me.
it can be. It would be nice if either you or your representative were there. It doesn't have to be both.
Okay. And as per our own regulations, and by signing the application, you also give the planning board members access during the process to the property anyway.
So I think one of the things, we don't do many site walks for hearings, and I think one of the things that's important is that if my recollection is that we can have the site walk, but unless we notice it as a public,
It will be noticed as the public.
it will be
hearing.
noticed. I mean, it'll be continued. But my recommendation is that we continue the hearing for 6:30, but that we conduct the site walk.
I mean, normally we
to
just
collect
continue the
findings
hearing
and bring
to
the
a
discussion back.
I was just saying, normally we just continue the hearing to a date,
Rebecca-
but that assumes a 6:30 meeting, I suppose.
Right, but if we're going to be meeting at 5:30, I think.
That is a planning board meeting. If we have a quorum, that is a meeting, and we're talking about.
True, but if we don't discuss, we don't have to provide notes and take
True.
public input.
So you're making a motion that we
Well,
can.
I guess we can, no, we should take notes. I haven't done this in a while. We should have minutes of the site walk if there's any discussion.
So.
Yeah, a site walk would have to be a noticed public meeting with minutes.
So it's a continuation.
Well, a notice public meeting is different necessarily than a public hearing at that public meeting.
Correct.
So
it has to be a notice public meeting.
Correct.
Whether or not the hearing happens at that meeting
I
is
think
open.
if we continue it to 5:30 on the 20th.
Okay.
Then we will continue it to 6:30 after that.
Okay. That sounds
All right,
reasonable.
I'm going to modify my motion. So the public hearing will be continued to a site walk on the parcel at 5:30 on April 20th. After the site walk, we will reconvene the hearing here at our regularly scheduled meeting at 6:30.
And you second that revised?
Second.
Okay, second. Okay, any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Mike.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a minor subdivision, Joseph?
Correct.
It's a minor subdivision, no roads are being created. I'm not sure what we're going to see, and I visited that property. I think I was there visiting Becky's, was it your grandmother that lived there last?
Yes.
And your uncle? And your uncle?
Yes.
So I've been to that property, and and we've also just approved a subdivision that some of the folks in attendance are building homes, and so I appreciate their feedback. Could someone in the audience, can I ask if anybody in the audience can
We're
let me
still
know?
officially in public hearing, so.
In 2010, was it? Did the town come through and redrain and rebuild that road? What year was it? And how far down did they go?
I think it was around 2012. Because after Hurricane Irene in
Yep.
2011, there was FEMA funding available to help towns shore up the roads. I think it was 2012, and that's the plan that Joseph and Joe Fagnet were chasing down for me. So I recommend that Joe, highway manager, look at it and give his advice to the board, because it's engineered from Cummins Hill down to Reed Brook. All the
They stopped at
drainage
Reed Brook.
structures, Yep.
That's what I thought.
Should be described in there, and that will give a picture of what that culvert is intended to do.
So that was, I believe, they did catch basins on each of those culverts and drainage down to the culverts, and then on the outflow as well as after. And that road is, I can't believe the condition it is, because you can have four-wheel drive, and if you're not paying attention, you could get stuck with four-wheel drive in that road.
So better than it was before those improvements.
I mean, just to bring us back, though, I mean, a lot of us are talking, including yourself, about kind of anecdotal evidence of having been there and what that means to us. And the very fact that you're bringing up all of this, I think, speaks to the fact that a site visit would be beneficial for all of us to take a look firsthand.
We're not going to see much because there's snow on the ground. I'm not sure what we're going to be able to tell. We have one soil scientist on the board who's phenomenal, but I'm not sure what we're going to be able to tell. There's no roads being built. They've met everything, and we didn't do, I'm kind of caught because we're sitting on the HOP committee, which is trying to infill and try and put as many homes as we can on existing roads, and here they're doing that. And I am caught in the middle on this because I feel for the neighbors. They want their neighborhoods, but yet it shouldn't be the last person coming in that gets turned down. So I'm a little nervous about that.
Ultimately, this is not about like what we'd like to see there in terms of the HOP and other things, but what is allowable under our regulations and given the conditions of the site.
Right. So what I see that they've met all the conditions, and it's a matter of, and I understand what Phil's saying, that if they don't get their approvals, then that gives them a chance to come back and change the lot lines. And I get that, but it's kind of on them to take the risk that if they don't, they would have to resubmit a plan. And it's up to the state to then to determine, yes, you will get your, because they can't build anything, it's just 3 lots, unless they can get all their approvals that they're asking for. I think they've met that, and, so this is just part of the discussion.
If I could just say, I mean, it sounds like a lot of us want to go and have a look and see what all these discussions are about. And if there are a bunch of us who do, and we plan on going there, if a bunch of us go there without actually continuing this meeting, or at least scheduling a site review or a site visit, we could end up with an unnoticed meeting, because we'll have a quorum there. And if you choose not to show up for the site visit, that could just be a thing. But
Oh, I'll be there. I'm just trying to make sure that we all understand. We're going for a site, and it could be filled with snow.
Could be.
And we're just going to look at it and say, yeah, we're not.
But it's also 5 weeks from now, and it could melt a great deal in the next several weeks.
Rebecca?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I hope that it's covered in snow on April 20th, but I doubt it.
It's probably going to be muddy, ankle deep.
Could be, but, it could dry up by then as well. But I think one of our most important roles is to serve as a facilitator between applicants and abutters. And I think for us to get our eyes on this site and to see where these lines are, to see wetlands, or to see where the proposed driveways are, I think is infinitely important and helpful in our decision-making process here on this application and as we look at other applications. It's also not unprecedented for us to go and do a site walk on a minor subdivision. I know we've done it before. I think it's really helpful to see these sites in person instead of just looking at a black and white flat image. So I think this is a great idea.
If I can say one more thing,
Yes.
I'd like to say that, while we have accepted and approved subdivision plans in the same night in the past, there's no requirement to do so. And in fact, we have 60 days in statute from the time we accept a plan to make a decision. And I don't think there's any value in rushing that process, especially when we've had so many questions raised by abutters this evening. We have a couple letters that raise good questions. We are.
We have waiver requests.
We have waiver requests. We could issue a conditional approval, but I think this process would be better served by continuing the hearing.
And as we were saying before, the conditional approval would leave less flexibility should one of the DES approval not come through.
Right. The conditions have to be very specific. If you don't meet them, then it requires reapplication, which is a burden for the applicant. It's a burden for the abutters.
That's not for us to determine. It's up for the applicant to determine whether he wishes.
Well, it is up to us to determine whether or not we want to continue this.
I agree with that, but I'm just, to Phil's point, it's an advantage to him. He may not want that advantage, so.
If I could just have a couple of comments?
Sure.
I apologize for waiting till the end, but
we're still in public hearing. Go for
good.
it.
Okay. So I'm Stephen Ball. I'm the one that we're all here for. I agree. At least we can have some common ground that the roads are awful, whether you live on the paved part or whether you live on the dirt part. So hopefully the road agent's listening to that. This piece of property, I was approached by some abutters to purchase this a few years ago. I was unable to purchase it then. When it came up for sale again, I purchased it. I do echo what Todd said. Every time a piece of property goes up for sale in the neighborhood, there's a shiver down my spine. And this is a process that I've been through before. I purchased a piece of property in 2019 that had a blighted home on it. I got rid of that home. I built some other structures there. One of them is a rental. I will say that is a part of my plan. Rentals in the state of New Hampshire are at less than 0.5% vacancy. As someone that was the director of anesthesia at the hospital here, we couldn't bring people into work because there was no place for people to live. The facility I work at now, same problems. So that's an issue that I look at. I do have concerns about the tax base because I do see my taxes rising, but I don't see anything. My kids are in the school. I don't see the roads getting any better. My cars are getting destroyed. All those things that we have about concerns. I was not coming into this to create something that be contentious. I was not coming into this to create something in a nefarious nature. That was not my intent. I hired Mark. I've worked with Mark in the past on another project that I had, and Mark did great work, and I brought him into this to find out how to do this to fulfill the requirements of the town. So I appreciate everyone's comments. I'm more than happy to talk to people afterwards, and thank you for the board, and I look forward to getting muddy on April 20th.
Maybe not.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing to 5:30 on April 20th as a on-site visit. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Just to clarify, was that to continue it to 5:30 and then 6:30 at Town Hall?
I think if we open a discussion at 5:30, we'll probably have to continue it again.
We do have to notice the time and place of the hearing.
Oh,
The original motion was to continue it to both 5:30 at the site and then to 6:30.
At 6:30, yeah, I guess we have to continue both, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I forgot about the public notice part, yeah.
Nay?
And opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion is approved. Let's give me a second. While you're all here as a captive audience talking about housing, I will remind you all that on April 6th, we have a community meeting at the elementary school for the Housing Opportunity Planning Grant Committee, and we're doing a housing study in Plymouth, and I encourage you all to come and voice your views and have a discussion.
Public feedback is important.
Yes, it's crucial to this process. And thank you very much for your patience.
Cafeteria at the elementary school.
Cafeteria at the elementary school, 6:30 on April 6th. Okay, thank you all.
Excuse me.
So, trying to get myself organized here. All right. This is a separate.
separate.
Take it, yeah. I knew that.
This is separate.
While you're getting organized, Mr. Chair, may I excuse myself?
You may recuse yourself, yes.
Thank you. I am relieved.
Application is under review. Sure, yeah, for the record.
Sorry, I'm just trying to go through all my notes here and figure out what's up next. And too many papers. I did too, but then more got added.
You're like a celebrity on this table, Neil, you know?
Ran everything off, it was two-sided, so
You're only soil scientist and...
Lightning rod. I get burned all the time.
Okay. Has Mark shown up?
Excuse me, I am online, yeah.
Oh, you're right. You showed up online. Okay.
Yep.
So I will invite you to be seated as a voting member for the rest of the meeting. Michael Bouchard has just recused himself. So welcome.
Okay, perfect. Welcome. Sorry, I'm late.
No problem.
Mark.
Got two members on Zoom. Oh, should I ask you if you're? I'm gonna get the language wrong. It's wrong again. If it is not reasonably practical for you to attend in person this evening?
It was not reasonably practical for me to attend this evening.
Thank you. Okay. So, up next, we have another application and public hearing. This is for Tenny Mountain Ski Lodge. The owner is North Country Development Group, and the applicant is North Point Engineering, PID 224/004 at 151 Tenny Mountain Road, lot size 284 acres in the agricultural zone. This is an application for a site plan review to renovate and expand the existing ski lodge at the lot just described. The expansion includes the addition of an elevator tower and changes to traffic circulation, stormwater, and accessibility. The process will follow much the same format as the previous application, except that this is a site plan review rather than a subdivision. And if the applicant or representative would like to say a few words to introduce the project. I know we've had a conceptual review already, but to say a few words for the board and all those in attendance this evening, including perhaps the visit to the zoning board as well.
Excellent. Are we
Oh,
ready?
sorry. Yeah.
No problem at all. First, I want to applaud you all for your patience, and I'm hoping that this meeting goes a little shorter than the last one for everybody's sake and a little less tension. My name is Stephen Kelly. I'm the owner of Tenny Mountain, North Country Development. Joining me tonight is Rob Belfa, who's a principal at Studio Troika, the architect on the project, as well as Jeff Lewis, the principal at North Point Engineering, the civil engineer on the project. You know, to me, this is a very special day. It's a very exciting day for me. I want to thank everybody on the board and the community who come out to participate. This is the beginning of what I think is going to be a really incredible new chapter for not just Tenny Mountain, but the greater Plymouth community. And I'm going to talk a little about that for a few minutes because we're going to get to the lodge, but I think it's really important to understand the impact and the why behind what we do and what we're going to be doing. You know, we're going to talk about the renovation to this lodge, you know, but I study data, and if you look at Tenny Mountain, you know, I've studied this from 1958 to where we are today, and as Tenny Mountain thrived, and as many ski communities thrive, the entire towns surrounding them thrive as well. But when they struggle, the towns themselves struggle. And for those who may not be aware, you know, Plymouth is 23% below the national poverty level, would qualify as an opportunity zone, and there's a strategic reason why sometimes that happens. And I think I've got some of the solutions to that. As it begins this next chapter for Tenny Mountain, one of the biggest risks in any development is construction. So an area of expertise of mine happens to be, you know, construction. And there's a lot of folks who are virtual, and some may not have had the ability to attend the last meeting, so it might be a little redundant for some. But I just want to reiterate that I own two very successful companies that operate throughout New England. One is a commercial general construction company. We build buildings of any type you can imagine, and one is a wireless communication company that builds towers upwards of 300 feet. So unique to this mountain is construction of a variety of levels. We could actually build new ski lifts ourselves. We don't need to hire other people because that's something we can actually do. We build towers on mountains all the time, much bigger than ski resort towers. So one value add to this particular project is that area of expertise, which takes a large percentage of the risk off the table. You know, so I think that's something that should give confidence to the entire town, the planning board, and the community, you know. But to be successful, it's a team effort. Everything in life is a team effort. So for us to be successful, we need to be partnering with the town and partnering with the community and all come together, understand what's in all of our best interests. So some of what I'm going to ask the planning board and the community tonight is for a really focused effort in what we present tonight, because we really actually need approval tonight. I'm going to try to get through, and I'm going to touch on actually, since I saw how, you know, fluid the last meeting was, and a lot of the folks that I've talked to, you know, in Plymouth actually happened to mention the high property taxes. So there is actually a correlation there with what we're doing, which I wasn't going to initially talk about, but I've actually spoke on panels about that in Massachusetts. So I'm going to touch on some things that can lead to some longer term, you know, economic development successful strategies, and how this is the beginning of that next chapter, which could sustain for the next couple hundred years of, you know, success for Plymouth. And I truly believe it starts here, because if you look at everything from 1958, there were peaks of success, there were little blips of people trying to make it work, and a whole lot of failure. And a lot of times in life, you can learn more from failure than you can from success. So we're going to apply a lot of that to what we do here tonight. Eventually, maybe 5 minutes, I'll wrap it up, and we'll get to the lodge and the actual presentation. But I think it's important we talk about some of these dynamics, because it's actually critical to us moving forward and to the success of the project. So with that said, asking for the community support, asking for the planning board support, I want you to know that I'm fully aware of some of the challenges beyond just the renovation to the lodge. There's been a lot of people talking about the existing antiquated infrastructure. You could hear how upset people were about the condition of the roads in the prior, you know, hearing. We too have got roads that have been, you know, levels of disrepair for now decades. Through really no fault of, I'd say, anybody. It's managed by a condo association that changes every decade, different people in charge, and a ski resort that would open and close 4 or 5 times since 1988. So the key to that being sustainable is us all having a stake in that game. We need to work together as a community to try to solve this problem. So I plan on working with the community on the mountain as a team, bringing all the folks together in the condo association, addressing the water and sewer system, the road system. Relative to the water and sewer system, we've actually already met with the Plymouth Water and Sewer Department. We had them come out, we talked to them. They themselves have actually never seen the engineering documents on the system. We really haven't either. We're trying to find some data on that. We've found some, but not all. We're in the process of trying to work on that. What that's going to come down to is eventually we're going to assess what was designed, where the failures are today because nobody's maintained it properly, but is that design even functional for today's needs, right? So we're already working on that right now with the Plymouth Water and Sewer Department. We will eventually come up with a game plan and have to put a design together, look at a cost, what that's going to take, and then we have to put together a program to make that work to get the roads, the water, and the sewer, you know, sustainable for multiple generations. So what I can tell you, beyond just what we're talking about tonight, which is, you know, the reinvention of this lodge, and I like to use the word reimagination because I have a pretty broad spectrum of what I see, and I can see this whole thing in the built environment in 100 years. And when we bought it, you know, I brought my wife and my kids to the top of the mountain. I said, you know, how special would it be if we can take a community that's struggled now for 35, 40 years, and in 25, 30 years, well, I'm still hearing on if it's my kids running the show at that point in time, that we will have built a community, several thousand people working, thriving in Plymouth, housing, job creation. And to me, it all starts with job creation. You know, if you want to bring an ecosystem together and you can study, you should, you know, I always recommend people study other successful programs, and you can actually see where things went well and where they didn't go well. And a lot of it starts with job creation. And something that a lot of towns who succeed understand the value of having complementary, contributors to the tax system. People embrace commercial development, and I'll just use Massachusetts as an example. Massachusetts is really thriving now, but 20 years ago, they really weren't. But within that thriving state, there are plenty of communities who are really struggling. And there's several that I know firsthand, 20 years ago, rejected all development. So what happened? There was nothing coming into the tax basis from a commercial basis. So they had to keep jacking the rates on all the homeowners. You heard the frustration of some of these people earlier. I've heard that same frustration with some of the other residents in Plymouth I talked to. Those towns, eventually what happens is people get sick. The same people who complained and didn't want to welcome development complained 10 years later the taxes were so high, and then they left the town because they got sick of paying the taxes. And it leaves you folks with a really difficult budget when you don't have enough of a tax basis coming in. So I'd encourage everybody on the board, everybody in the community to think big picture, to make Plymouth sustainable long-term. You want to embrace development, bring commercial businesses in who can create jobs, which then creates a demand for housing, attracts people to the town, and then that combination of a commercial tax basis with an increased residential tax basis paying into it actually decreases the residential homeowners taxes and allows people, whether they be on a fixed income in the latter stages of the career or young families getting started, to actually be able to afford where they live. So it all starts with good planning and economic development. I know it's a little bit of a segue from what we're about to talk about for this lodge, but it's actually super important because it does. This is the first step, what could be a 40 to 50-year play to really redevelop the greater Tenney area, not just the hill we're talking about today, which we're working on some of that master plan. It's probably going to take 2 or 3 years because it's a state, a public, a local. There's a whole lot of different things that can come into play with that master plan. At some point, we'll be able to present it to folks, but it all starts tonight, right? And if we can get our decisions made tonight, we can jump right into really pushing hard to finalize the engineering and get into procurement. One of the big challenges we have is the global supply chain. If we release this job today, my generator, which we're gonna have an emergency generator on the building, they'll support all the life safety, the fire protection systems, the elevators, it's 90 weeks out from the receipt of an approved shop drawing. The switchgear is 72 weeks out, okay? So the global supply chain has a huge influence on whether we can start this job April 1st of 2024, which is our intention. If we can do that, our hope is to have this place open for next ski season. If we cannot start in April 2024, we will lose an entire year in the process because we don't want to lose the ski season for the community of Plymouth. We want Tenney to be up and running and be better than it's ever been next year. We got open February 10th, short season, 5 or 6 weeks so far. Couple more weeks. It's been great for the people who skied it. I welcome anybody to come up if they want. Tomorrow, $17 lift tickets. Come up, have a little green St. Patrick's beer, St. Patrick's Day beer, but enjoy the mountain. But we want to be open for the whole season next year so the community can really enjoy the mountain, and that's really important to me. If we are not able to get our approvals tonight, then there's no way we can start April of 2024, which means there's no way we can dump by end of December, and we push to a start of April of 25, and that just delays everything that we're going to be talking about. It has a trickle-down effect of when the next level of development might be able to happen, which is, again, a big contributor to the tax basis and the growth and the prosperity of the Tenney Mountain region and the greater Plymouth area. So with that, I know I pivoted, segued a lot. I want to dial it back down to where we are today, from 30,000 feet back to 5,000 feet, and talk about what we're presenting tonight. Some of you folks have seen this. What we have here, when we looked at the existing lodge, one of the first things we realized is it's really not accessible, not just from an ADA perspective for people with handicap, abilities, but also just people in general who have mobility issues. The last time we spoke at the planning board, I spoke to one of the residents out in the hall, and she told me she can't even get her friends up there. And that's, that shouldn't be the way. They loved Tenney. Now they can't get up to even have a dinner, and one woman's 87 years old. So we want to see people to be able to enjoy it. So we had to solve for that by building an elevator in the lower parking lot, which will allow people to get up, and then we have a 2-story bridge that then connects over to the building. We've done a small addition, as you see on the drawings, on the left-hand side, a small addition on the top and the bottom, and an addition on the right-hand side, right, which is on the kitchen side. We're increasing the kitchen capacity, but really it's not a huge increase to the footprint of the building. And then you'll see the second floor as well. We've got another addition on the right-hand side, which again is just above the kitchen. And that's going to allow us to really expand and get people with mobility issues up in the elevator into the building, and then everybody can really enjoy the lodge. I think I'll put pause right now. Right now, Rob, I don't know if you want to take it, if you want to open up to the board, you want me to hand it to you, and you can kind of talk a little bit through some of the design?
Yeah, just a couple. Is it okay if I talk from here and point to here before we go?
I mean, it would be good to have you on mic, actually, for...
Is there another mic, or do you want me to shift over?
You can probably, I don't know how long these are, but...
Yeah, we have a remote member.
Oh, you do have
would
one.
like to hear. She's on.
Oh, right, of course.
And we're recording the
Yes.
meeting as well.
Right. This actually works pretty well. Can you hear me okay remotely? So my name is Robert Elfer. I'm a partner at a Studio Troika, an architecture firm. We do a lot of work in this type of area with athletic facilities, hospitality. So we've got a pretty good understanding of what a new facility really needs in terms of facilities behind it, the support spaces, to be successful. When you look at this type of investment, you really have to get some of these things right. When we first came to the building and looked at it, and this is not unusual in a building that I don't know how many years it had been left empty. Elevator? Anyways, it had been left empty for a while. So the building was obviously not in the greatest of shape. There's some structural components that are in good shape, but other parts were not in great shape. Bathrooms, facilities, everything is a little bit run down. So to create a more modern facility to serve the future, what we looked at is to understand, okay, on the ground floor, as Steve was pointing out, how do we start to sensitively address the site? Because when you look at it, it's a beautiful site. You know, the stream, that's or brook or whatever it is running along the side, its proximity to the mountain. It's a pretty special place. So the thing was, how do we do this to have as minimal impact as possible on the site? So on the ground floor, as Steve was pointing out, we identified that straight line along this edge, which is pretty much where everything ends right now. We said, okay, that's our limit. Let's put two small pieces on the ground floor over here, and let's build a somewhat basement space in here, because there was no place to expand a kitchen massively on this side of the site. So we looked at a scheme where we did something on the lower level. On the upper level, the impact is even smaller. There's a small piece over here, and this is really the biggest impact anywhere on the site, which is all the way to the right of the environmentally sensitive area, which is a kitchen on the second floor. So if I jump through that, and I'm pretty sure everybody here is familiar with the site itself. So the plan on the building, really the concept is, and this is what a lot of the new ski areas are doing, what they have is the ground floor, you get people in there, they get all their lockers, everything changed, so you get the upper floor free just for, you know, the bar, restaurant, you know, midday, it's much easier that way. So a lot of hills, Loon does that, a lot of other major hills are doing this right now. So there's a separation of how we're structuring the space. So the ground floor is really intended for wide open spaces for lockers, expanded shops, storage, and support for the kitchen upstairs, and new bathrooms on both floors. One of the problems was there was insufficient bathrooms really for the function, and I'm a skier, I hate walking down steps in my boots to go to a bathroom. You know, the gray hair makes it a little harder these days. So, you know, the upstairs is bathroom, you know, proper ADA bathrooms at the upper, lower level, wide open space at this level, and really the biggest thing here is this piece is this kitchen support. You really need, and this is still too small of a kitchen for this type of facility, but it's kind of the base minimum that we can come up with. So really the intent as we started to look at it is like, what's the minimal impact for the greatest bang for your buck? The other part that Steve was mentioning is the biggest issue on the site is an inability of anybody at an accessible level to get to the site. So believe it or not, this really was the best way we can come up with an elevator and stair to get to the upper levels. It's as simple as that. So this and a bridge, the fun part is it actually kind of creates a somewhat unique experience, but that's why we're doing this. So that it's a big piece of the project. It's probably the major impact on the site. Whoop, sorry. I believe you've had the opportunity to see these elevations. These are just straightforward elevations. I think you'll see in the 3D is a little bit easier to see. So, there we go, a little friction. So just a series of axon views of the site. So as you can start to see, the tower and the bridge is probably the most significant impact on the site itself. The building, the smaller components over here are all in the lower level, so this side doesn't get touched very much. This side doesn't get touched very much. And the piece that you're seeing really, which is the kitchen, is kind of half buried in ground. So we think that the building, it's been pretty successful in not making it anything really impactful and large. So pretty subtle in that sense. And lastly is a series of views of the building. I'm sure you've all had a chance to see these before, but we're working at a very sustainable building, so we're looking at heavy timber construction, which is really nice because that type of structure has carbon sequestration in it. So everything we're looking to do is a fairly sustainable. It's not going to be a net zero building because that's pretty hard for a mountain environment like this with the heating and cooling seasons, but as close as possible. Big roof, solar panels. It's really a building designed for the future, for the next 50 or maybe 100 years. So I'll leave it at that. If there's any questions on this, please let me know.
Thank you. I just remind members of the board that we are not really looking at interior design, but more the exterior elevations and the site plan and all of that, although it is interesting in setting the context for what we're looking at.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I would like to mention that, there are plenty of ways to save money in construction, and everything you see on this drawing is everything but saving money. You couldn't probably build a more expensive elevator stair tower than all glass the way we have it designed, the heavy timber, the structural steel. So we're really designing it in a way that to me is going to truly differentiate Plymouth and Tenny from anywhere else in New England. We're going to be the resort that people from the west fly out here to ski, because it's going to be that cool of a resort. It's got tremendous hills with the blacks and the blues, which most people know, and but when we build this resort, it's really going to reinvent New England and define it differently. Our goal is to be best in class, and that is a huge value add to Plymouth, all the businesses in Plymouth, as well as the community that surrounds Tenny. So we're not sparing any expense. If anything, we want to be the coolest place that anyone's ever been to, and I think that's really what we're going to achieve with this design.
I'm going to take over to wrap up. Jeff Lewis from North Point Engineering. Kind of got the boring part of this, but it's probably a critical part for you folks. We prepared the site plan application. My office did. So any questions about that I can certainly address. I was going to try to keep it simple here. From our perspective, it's a pretty simple site plan, actually. As Stephen mentioned, we are hyper-focused on the lodge and the improvements right around the lodge. So in looking at our site plan, which I have up here, and Joseph is up on the TV screen, this is kind of showing Davis Road coming up the mountain here, the existing lodge over here. Davis Road kind of turns into this Eagle's Nest, which goes up to the Eagle's Nest residence up at the top of the hill. And right now, on the downhill side of Davis Road is the parking lot that serves the main parking lot that serves the lodge. I'll actually spin back to this one real quick. This is the existing conditions plan, so I'm making you jump around too. No problem. So this shows the existing parking lot here, the Davis Road right here, and the existing lodge, where they have this kind of paved parking lot, not really striped area. It's a drop-off area. It's kind of a first come, first served type of situation over there. It's really just one big wide paved road as you go through there. So that's really the area we're looking at, is this area on the uphill side of Davis Road, and how that's going to work with the new lodge and the new accessibility that you've just heard Rob and Stephen talk about. So it's really just this couple of acres area in here on the uphill side of the road where we're proposing improvements right now. We do have the expanded building and the accessibility tower with the elevator. We're proposing a new designated drop-off lane. So we were moving some pavement to provide some green space between Davis Road and the new parking lot, much better defined. Much better circulation as you're coming up the road. So this really will just be a drop-off area over here with some accessible handicap parking spaces. So that'd really be the way that the buses and any drop-offs come through there, much more like you'd see at a ski lodge. And then this will remain the main parking lot over here with no modifications to it, really. So that's the plan. Rob did a good job explaining what they're proposing with the building. We are proposing a new fire lane up there. That's one of the critical aspects of this site right now, is a fire access up to the building is inadequate. So we do have a new paved access road that'll go up there. It's going to require a couple of tiered retaining walls in there. So there's a fair amount of kind of earthwork and new work going on up here. But it is all in an area that's already developed. There's already utility infrastructure, water, sewer, everything's up there. So we'll just be connecting up the building. Stephen has an incredible team that is working on this building design right now, led by Rob's office and the team that's really fastly moving through the design development of this. And as he mentioned, they have reasons to be seeking approval as fast as we can from you folks. So we're aware of that. So we think we know we got a few things to deal with, as he mentioned. And I know you folks have some comments from staff, and we'll have some opportunity to hear from the public today. What we would be I think looking for is, if it's possible, is any type of approval that would have whatever conditions need to be met on that, depending on, after you have a discussion about it. Even if we came back for some type of compliance hearing, it would allow them to move forward right now. Again, he's looking at breaking ground next April, so that's a year from now. So we have plenty of time to work out kind of any remaining technical details on this. If you folks did want to send it out to a consultant review for drainage or engineering, certainly we'd be okay with that. I do want to say we did ask for a couple waivers from the site plan regulations. One of them was a boundary survey. This is a huge multi-hundred acre parcel. We're really only working down in this lodge area that's been developed before. We have no issues with setbacks or proximity to property lines. We don't have a boundary survey out there, so we have asked for a waiver from the requirements for boundary, which I think is appropriate. And we've also asked for a waiver from the landscape plan. We don't have a landscape planting plan prepared. That's something that you folks thought was important out here. We could certainly prepare that. If you look, I mean, it's a ski lodge, so we got to be sensitive to what they can put out there. I mean, I think the intent would be to put some plantings up there eventually that are native plantings and suitable for this type of terrain. There's going to be a lot of snowbanks out there around this area, so we certainly could come back with something if that was something you folks were concerned about. We don't have that at this time, and we really didn't want it to hold up them moving forward, so we did ask for the waiver for that. As the chair mentioned, we were at the ZBA last week. We had 5 or 6 folks show up and were very supportive of the project, so we haven't seen any feedback that we need to really address. We did receive a variance for the height of the tower, a special exception for the height of the tower, which exceeded the normal building height. So we're all clear from a zoning perspective, we think. It's just from an engineering perspective, a site planning perspective, it's just hearing what the comments are tonight, and hopefully those are things we could address as conditions of approval. I will stop there.
I'd just like to mention, Jeff started with the site work being fairly simple. If you saw the budget with those deep retaining walls, it's not as simple as he makes it out to be, but it's going to look simple when we're done.
Okay, thank you. So the board's going to spend a few minutes talking about the acceptance of this application. How do we all feel, or do you need a few minutes to look over things? So we've got the 2 waiver requests.
I'm fairly comfortable with the waiver request for the survey, given the fact that they're making slight enlargements to the parcel, which is clearly quite a ways from the boundaries of the plan as depicted. A little concerned about the landscape plan. I don't know what other people think.
I agree with that. I think it's pretty standard to do on a large parcel like this, where the development is on a relatively small area of a much larger parcel. I think that's pretty standard to accept that as a waiver. I feel like a landscaping plan is something that, without that as part of the plan, we don't really have anything to go back to the developer on if the landscaping, there's no plan to lean on. And especially when I hear reference of a green space around how the parking or the drop-off area is getting reconfigured and there's going to be a green space, that to me tells me we need a landscaping plan.
Is that something that would hold us back from acceptance, or that would be something dealt with in the approval phase?
If we issue conditional approval on a landscaping plan and they hand us something that's a landscaping plan, we're kind of obligated to accept it, whereas...
Well, I'm not even talking about approval at this point. Is it enough to accept the plan as complete and then talk about that in the discussion of the approval?
My concern about accepting an application without information that's required is that we are bound by a fixed time period once we accept an application, whereas if we're accepting it as it is.
On the flip side, if I can jump in, I can't tell if I'm interrupting anybody from here.
You're good. Go ahead.
That doesn't usually stop me though, so I'll just keep talking. I I think if we were to accept it or waive it as part of a complete application, that does move the ball, get the ball rolling a little bit more. I think I would need it before I would approve an application, but it certainly could help us open up more of a dialogue with the developer and with and hold a public hearing and things like that. So.
Am I allowed to speak or no?
Hold on one moment, please.
Can we do a conditional acceptance?
I don't think so.
No, I think it's better just to accept it up or down.
I think you can do conditional
Because then how do you get to the next
Okay.
part of this without actually having that condition met before we get to the approval part?
We can't open a hearing until we accept it.
Yeah, exactly. So they need to provide the evidence of completing that condition before the public hearing.
You ready for a motion?
I'm ready to hear a motion. We might have further discussion, but I'm ready for a motion.
I move that we accept this application.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to accept this application as complete. Is there any further discussion?
I'm a little concerned. Yeah, my only question is the landscaping plan, but if the applicant is willing to work with this on this, I'm willing to consider acceptance.
Could I mention that?
Yes.
That's in excess of $30 million. The last thing I want to do is worry about, spending a couple bucks on landscaping.
Right.
I feel like the depth of the plan,
So-
the depth of the whole thing, I think we can.
Rebecca? Sorry.
Go ahead, Sue.
No, go ahead.
I think Sue did. Go ahead, Rebecca.
I was just gonna say, I'm okay with this being a, I'd be willing to accept it as complete, but I don't wanna, I'm not undervaluing the resources that are getting put into this project, but I do think it might be fewer dollars than most of the other project, but I think a landscaping plan is something that's important to us. That's why it's in our site plan regulations. It's something that we ask of all site plan regs or applications.
Yeah. All right, any more comments from the board? Questions?
I have a question.
You have to wait for the public hearing, sorry. All right, all in favor of accepting this application as complete?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, guys on Zoom. Abstentions? Okay, this application is accepted as complete. So at this point, then, we should start talking about our potential, what's the word I'm looking for here? Findings of fact and whether or not we have any questions.
Hearing first?
No, I mean, the potential findings of fact, like,
Yeah.
and issues that, questions we might have, if we have any questions before opening a public hearing.
I do have some questions about the proposed expansion of the foundation level and the setback to the waterway, the watercourse. Since that is a change, I do have concerns about the existing existing structure.
Is it about drainage and retaining walls and such, or other issues?
Presumably there are wetlands associated with the watercourse.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna need a SWIP.
Stormwater prevention plan?
Right.
And it is a fairly steep site with downhill development as well.
Well, that's, SWIP is standard for a project of this size. It's, it's more than an acre.
Although the site work is,
Well, it's part of a project that's more than an acre. It's
have you looked at the DES requirements for alteration of terrain permit with the site work that's happening around the building?
Yes. There won't be, there's not an alteration of terrain permit required for this project. We're under the threshold for alteration of terrain permit through DES. There will be a stormwater pollution prevention plan, a SWIP, plan required to be in compliance with the EPA CGP. That is the one critical area we've identified on the site, is that the existing brook, the plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the foundation wall of the new lodge would be the same foundation wall, same location. So there's going to be work done in proximity to that. That's the area where they're going to have to be very concerned during construction for erosion control. But we're not going any closer to the brook with the foundations. That
we kept the existing foundation line
you kept the foundation line, right?
Right. We kept the same, yeah. I think this probably.
If I recall, there are new retaining walls.
This probably
though?
shows it the best, is the existing foundation line. Things actually come out farther than that in the existing plan, but we extended it along that line, so we didn't go any further than what's already there. We're pretty careful with that.
So that whole area we have had our wetland scientists look at and map the jurisdictional wetlands. The wetlands on that side of the brook are the bank of the brook, basically. There's a little bit of wetland on the other side, but it's pretty much just the channel of the brook.
Also, that top left, Rob, where you are, that's currently existing just under a deck. There's actually footings there.
Oh, so there are footings there.
Post down on some
Here's-
footings.
Yes, there's a deck above here, there's walkways, there's a bunch of stuff going on over here. What we've done is sort of keep that line as a built line, and then we're actually cantilevering decks beyond that.
I'm also looking at this proposed retaining wall and fence.
Which page are you on?
Site plan?
Yeah, on the other side of the lodge.
Yeah, and I'd kind of be curious to see what impact that might have.
Okay, yeah.
Over here on the fire lanes.
On the grading and drainage plan? Is that the one?
Yeah, I guess, yes, exactly.
So the way that works right now is that if you're familiar with the current setup over there, the fire lane access has got snow. Michael will have to correct me again if I'm wrong. Has snow cover on it. It's one of the accesses that the skiers and the boarders have over to the chairlift that's up here. So we need to widen and kind of soften up that fire lane, but also keep access up at the higher level for skiers to get over here. So this is going to be higher up here so that it can stay that path or trail for the skiers, but this is going to be diving down to meet the parking lot. So we are going to have a retaining wall there. It's going to start off up near the building at obviously no reveal, and then we'll get up to 10 to 12 feet by the time it gets down to around the corner. So it will need to have a rail or fence on there to protect the skiers. So that's,
We should point out that we also plan on upgrading it up the hill, cutting a trail that with signage that now brings people over to the Hornet, what is known as the Hornet Lift, where they'll traditionally come down there, and we're going to be redirecting out beyond that topography right there, up higher where you are, Jeff.
yeah.
Joseph, has the fire chief been notified, given a copy of the plan to seek comment?
Yep, all department,
Okay.
water and sewer district as well as fire, and I believe the deputy chief is in attendance.
Oh, hi, thank you. Do you have have you seen the proposed fire access?
We'll open the public hearing in
Yeah, I can wait. Thank you.
shortly.
So I do have questions about the suitability of the fire access to the building.
So we did work closely with the fire department, brought them out on site, went over radiuses. We are sprinkling the building as well, bringing in a new, fire protection service, widened that road to accommodate the trucks as part of the request of the fire department.
This might be is it a good time to open? How do we board feel? Public hearing?
I'm comfortable going to
I've got
public.
some questions.
Rebecca, yes?
Is there going to need to be a wetland permit for the disturbance to the stream bed during construction from either the bridge or any of the
Foundation?
renovation work or the retaining wall?
No, we're not anticipating any wetland. We're not anticipating any impact to the wetland, the stream at all as part of this work.
We're actually improving the existing condition. The way the current bridge is constructed is, I'd say, more uncompromising the wetlands, and we're going to be completely clear spanning and taking posts out of the wetlands.
Unfortunately, even when you're improving wetlands, you need to get a wetlands permit.
It's really a safety issue right now. If you walked on that bridge, you'd probably feel, they've made some, I'll say, temporary efforts to, stabilize that bridge, but that bridge needs to come down pretty quickly.
I think the original bridge was built in 1963. That was before.
That's about right. I'm not knocking them, they got their money's worth. Just beyond its useful life.
I have another question about, on one of the plans, it shows another parking lot below the current parking lot as I know it, and I'm just wondering, if that is in existence. It looks like it's on a different lot. Is that already?
That's already existing. It's existing gravel lot. There's actually a road. When you go beyond the current lot, which you're probably more familiar with, it's already a road that brings you right down there.
Rebecca, what page are you looking at that shows that? Just out of curiosity.
I think it's this one.
I'm on the existing conditions overlay plan.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
That was done in 89 or 88.
And that's existing and cleared, or is that got a bunch of scrubby gray birches on it or something?
No, it's existing and cleared. In the past, Michael had kept like the ambulances and stuff like that down there as, off-site parking for, vehicles. And then if there was ever overflow parking, that site was used for overflow parking from the main lot. Our intent would be to do the same thing and use that as overflow parking.
And is there any plan for pedestrian safety between the main parking lot or the overflow parking, just to ensure that there is a safe place for?
Right now, you can see we've kind of designated a area, which would be a paved walk out to Davis Road to try to get people to funnel across the road in one spot. It's a little tricky because that parking lot is right on top of the road, so they will come across where they want to come across, but that's all we're proposing right now, without any physical improvements to the roadway right now.
I have one more unrelated question before public hearing as well. Maybe I missed it. Is there any plan for lighting and what type of exterior lights and?
So we do have a lighting plan we've submitted in that application. They would like to put in some lighting. Right now there's no lighting anywhere out here down the parking lot. So we would like to put in some lighting in the parking lot, in the new parking lot over near the lodge, as well as some security lighting out here. So that is part of the application. That would be standard cutoff fixtures, dark sky compliant. No light trespass on neighbors. There's a couple of neighbors who may be close by, so we'll make sure that there's no light trespass off our property lines for them.
I have a question. Did you say that you were going to do some road improvements on the Tenny Mountain Road?
No.
That comes up from Melvin Road?
Not as part of this, no.
I think they specifically said they weren't going to do that.
Yeah.
That would be something, obviously, as part of the master planning would be addressing. There's some work to be done again with the community to try to figure out how things are going to be structured and how they're going to move. But obviously, as part of the long-term success of the whole development, it's going to be necessary to improve all the roads. Not just Tenny Mountain Road, but Davis Road as well. Even for those who are familiar, the part of Tenny Mountain Road that washed out in the hurricane in 2010, our intent would be to repair that road, potentially put in a bridge that will clear span the brook that runs under it, which I think you may be familiar with.
And just to be clear, that would be a future project, not this one.
That would be a future project, but also that is an improvement from a life safety standpoint to get the fire apparatus up that hill, as currently going up, what is Tenny Brook 2 is a little bit of a challenge. So what our intent is, as part of the master plan, to address then that, road that had collapsed, 13 years ago.
Can I ask one more? Joseph, have we heard anything from Water and Sewer about connectivity between the public lines and this development?
Yeah, so there have been, I know, many discussions between the applicant and Water and Sewer District. My understanding is that Water and Sewer District has asked for a full evaluation of the lines between the public system on Mayhew Turnpike and the lodge. That would be everything that feeds into the public system. And I understand they have some concerns about some of the condition of the equalization tank and some of the lines. And they
We're actually engaging at our own expense that assessment. So once we met with them, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we've been reaching out to several vendors who can maybe support us in those efforts. We haven't picked a horse yet. We'll be doing that soon.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, comments before public hearing? All right. It is currently 8:39, and I will open the public hearing. If any members of the public have any comments or questions, please come up and identify yourself. And
absolutely. My name's Jonathan Van Scooter. I live on Sam Hall Drive off of Tenny Mountain Road that we just were discussing and talking about. The one major concern that I have is the developer is in a agreed upon subdivision that was approved prior to his purchase of this mountain, and the town specifically has regulations of maintaining all the roads within that. And my concern is I want to see you guys succeed, because at your January meeting you said home values are going to quadruple. I agree with that, but at the same time, I do want to see not just hey, we're potentially going to do this a bridge there. We're thinking about in phase 2 doing the roads. I would like to see a long-term, hey, this is what timeline that we're looking at to deal with that infrastructure. I know the master plan takes a long time. I get that. I'm a developer of Christian youth camps. We just purchased 2 in COVID season because camps had a rough time. So we're doing the exact same thing with master planning and trying to figure that out. And I know it doesn't happen overnight, but I think the planning board should look to the residents to say, hey, we want to take care of you as well as taking care of future development, because I think this is going to be a great thing for the town, for the mountain, for the surrounding towns. It's going to be a great benefit for everybody. But at the same time, there are very specific regulations that are laid forth. For example, it says all streets in the subdivision shall be designed to provide safe vehicular travel and drainage mitigation. One of the things in this conversation was stormwater. I didn't hear anything about stormwater, and stormwater coming down Tenny Mountain Road. It's a bowl, and it just comes right down. And Tenny Brook, that's how that bridge washed out, was all that stormwater coming down. So working on that, but it then says all streets in future subdivisions shall meet the minimum standard, and improving such minimum standards to any and all connecting streets not publicly maintained. So I would like the planning board to recognize, yes, this is something that we want to hold to, because this affects the residents, because we are not on public land, but as Steve mentioned at his January meeting, he is part of a larger association that is not running well. And from what I've heard from Steve, he wants to do things with excellence, and so let's try to get that going again. And I understand, hey, if we're going to be bringing construction equipment up, it's going to take a beating on the roads. So I get it. We don't want to lay down fresh roads, but what does that long-term plan look like? Because that is something that is laid forth. So that's just one of the major concerns that I have as a resident. I lived up there. I've been living there for almost 8 years now. I love it up there. And like I said, I want to see that mountain really come to fruition. I have a 21-month, and I'd love to see her getting on skis next season. So I want to see him start on April 1st, but also say, hey, in good faith, we want to say, here's the timeline that we're thinking for roads and those other infrastructures.
Am I allowed to respond?
Yes, you may.
So what I can tell you is we're already working on that. We don't have full control of it yet. Again, I'll say it's a team effort, right? So it's and I'll say no fault of anyways. The condition of those roads are from decades of negligence. Zero maintenance, all your drainage was done improperly, and there's nothing's been done to improve those roads over decades. So it's not a fault of any particular crowd. It just is what it is, right? I've owned this thing less than a year now, so we're making a lot of good progress in that short amount of time. But it truly is a team effort. We need to meet with the town, meet with the community, maybe the state. There's a whole lot of other variables that come into play here that would, if we rebuild those roads, we want to do it the best way. I'll say highway grade, right? So we can withstand a lot of abuse and give us wear and tear. We don't want to be dealing with 5 to 7 years from now. I've done a ton of road work. There's plenty of bad ways to do it. You put a topping slab over it, all you're gonna do, if you don't fix the bottom, the problem at the base, you're just wasting your money, right? So if you really want to do it right, it takes a little bit more time to plan it, but your long-term benefit is gonna be much more sustainable. But that's what we're gonna be looking towards. But I can tell you, I wouldn't build a $30 million lodge thinking that my clients are gonna have to bounce up the road. I've drove up both of them. I actually drive a BMW, and I didn't know not to go up that first road, what's it called, Melvin Road. The first time I was all over the place. It was insane. I was like, who the hell drives up this road? You know, and then yeah. Trust me, I figured that out, you know? So I can only tell you, it's very high on our priority list. You know, we're working with the local condo association. We don't have full control, so it's a team effort with everything we do while we're going towards that, you know? So you'll probably be part of some of those future meetings as we start kind of coming together as a group. But again, whoever's got skin in the game, show up, participate, get involved. It's going to be a challenge to get us over that hurdle. But once we get into the planning stages, I can tell you we're really good executors, man. We can make things happen. So you know, it's something we do well. So I think, again, that's a huge value add from us versus, say, a developer who's not in the construction game, right? So I can only tell you it's very high on our list. You know, I'm almost embarrassed to send people up there because of those roads. I tell them, hey, we're going to fix those, you know. And there's some interim gaps you can do, like simple coal patch and all the big potholes trying to buy you a little bit of time. The plows destroy it, unfortunately, but you have to plow the snow. But the plows rip up all the loose asphalt. You know, that's not just here, it's everywhere, you know.
If I can just interject for a second, could everyone just please make comments and questions, address comments and questions to the board, and so it doesn't develop into a side conversation?
Right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Absolutely. My other thing is to the planning board, just a quick question. The online tax map that I can access, is that 100% accurate?
I cannot vouch for that.
It is not. So, because on the tax map, it says that I am technically an abutter of the developer, and I did not receive notice of this meeting. And so that's why I wanted to get clarification of that.
My understanding is that it should go to the...
The counter detail indicates this reference use only is not meant to determine boundaries.
Okay. So, but yeah, so that's just something that I'd be interested in, because it shows Sam Hall Drive is technically owned by, or it's on the land of the developer. So if that's not accurate and that's something that we can fix in the future, that would be great.
So I'll just tell you on that point, we found a lot of issues as we're going through the legal process, and it's probably going to take a continuum of that to define what's actually accurate. And some of the data is challenging, to say the least.
Is the land owned by the condo association or by individuals?
So the land...
On Sam Hall Drive, it is all residents that own the land and the building. That is the only, that road, and then there's two houses, one on John French and then one that's on Tenny Mountain Road. Those are all private homes that have egress to their homes.
Are there any further comments? Yes.
I'm Jed Ferris. I also live on Sam Hall Drive. I have several concerns and several suggestions. So emergency access, first and foremost. So oil prices have driven up, quite considerably over the last few years, so we're all using wood stoves. No matter how safe any of us are, accidents still happen. I am concerned that, and it's convenient that we have a member of the fire department here, I'd invite them to come out 2 hours into the next storm and do a test run and see if you can get to my house if I have a fire in the winter. Deliveries. So I don't have a problem driving to the bottom of the hill. My truck does, but I don't. So to get my mail. But when I first moved up here, I was able to get Amazon, FedEx, UPS in my house. They stopped coming up here. They coded the road inaccessible. I have to drive to Ashland to pick up, to the Dollar General to pick up packages, and then to the post office, making me drive up and down that road more than I would have to if the road was in a good condition. This year, I know 3 of us that have pulled 8 vehicles out of Sam Hall Drive. Those of us that have pickup trucks and are willing, and that's just when I leave in the morning at 6:30 and when I come home at like 5:30 at night. Those are only the ones I've caught. So 3 of us have pulled 8 people out that have been stuck, usually out-of-towners, Honda Accords coming from Maine, BMWs, a lot of Massachusetts plates. Hardy County Snow Mobile whatever they call themselves, or club. I don't have anything against snowmobiles. I have dirt bikes. I grew up outdoors. But they were given permission to make a road from the gas station to the top of the hill. And then the mountain is directly financially benefiting from their access to the hill, because they go up there and buy beers, they buy food, and then they take off, but they're not maintaining the road. And that the snowmobile trails are directly contributing to the degradation of the road. We just voted and approved the increase in tax dollars. None of us on the road have school-aged children. We're required to register our vehicles. We pay taxes. I have to inspect my vehicle so it's roadworthy, but our roads are not worthy of our vehicles to traverse them. It's interesting. So I say all that. I'm going to switch into the suggestions because I'm not trying to sound testy. But I've been in construction. I'm facility manager, property and maintenance manager for the last decade, and I've built and maintained dirt roads in third world countries that, you know, other people have the benefit of traversing, I'd imagine, to this day. So I have some experience in the industry. Not as much as owning my own company, but I've been around multi-million-dollar projects. So it's sad to see that although there have been highs and lows for Tenny Mountain, and it has fallen in disrepair, there's no prioritization of improving the access to the mountain. We're trying to improve the access for people who are have decreased mobility and have disabilities. Not quite sure how they're going to get to the mountain to enjoy the benefits of an elevator, but I guess we'll look at that in the future. So some of the suggestions, if we could, like John said, if we could publish a development plan with timelines and phases that's readily available to the local community. Prioritize infrastructure, maybe open another lift, add some night skiing, take care of the locals over the part-timers, out-of-staters, and leaf peepers. Skiers and snowboarders should be your target, not people who have limited mobility. It's a ski resort. Seems counterintuitive. So how do we plan? I saw it up here. You can't really quite see it right now, but we want to add a lower parking lot that does connect to Tenny Mountain Road. On the plans, it shows it's going to go from Davis, from the main parking lot around to the bottom, and then there'll be another road that comes out onto Tenny Mountain Road. How are you going to dump people out onto Tenny Mountain Road without addressing the condition of Tenny Mountain Road, setting them up for failure there? I feel like the Tenny Mountain Association should serve the needs of the local residents before they approve and prioritize nice-to-have renovations and upgrades. I just ask that you take a look at the deeds and the requirements of Tenny Mountain Association. As far as I'm aware, that organization is defunct and not upholding its legal obligations as a part of the land, whatever percentage of the land that association owns or is responsible for. And then final two comments. I'd invite you, just like the previous public debate, requested come on out. I don't know how often you guys come up Tenny Road, but bring a two-wheel drive, a Subaru or a pickup. Doesn't matter the off-road capability, it's still going to be uncomfortable, and the wear and tear in your vehicle is the same. Unacceptable. I heard a lot of really good buzzwords tonight concerning the future of the operation here at Tenny Mountain. The jury is still out. All I know is that the road conditions on Tenny Mountain Road are unacceptable.
And just to clarify a couple of things. So to the extent that those road conditions affect your ability to access your residences and whether or not certain deals and agreements have been broken, in respects of those are important issues and separate issues. The accessibility of this development is spoken to by some of what you're explaining here in terms of safety as well. Just to kind of, they share related infrastructure and they're related issues in some ways, but in some ways the accessibility of the residences is a separate matter.
So then if we put Jersey barriers across the top of John French so you couldn't proceed to the mountain, would that be acceptable? Because then, I mean, if it's just for the benefit of the residents.
No, I'm not trying to belittle those.
I'm just asking.
I'm just saying from our standpoint of doing a site plan review. Phil, did you have
I would just ask that priorities are addressed.
There were a couple points brought up about notification of abutters. This project is on map 224 lot 4. I believe Sam Hall. There's another parcel that I believe is owned by the same owner, but that's map lot 7. So since this isn't on lot 7, Sam Hall Road and those properties are not abutters to this subject property.
I appreciate that.
Yep. So in terms of notification of abutters, the Sam Hall properties would not have been included on this. There was something else I was going to say, but I kind of forgot what it was. Sorry. The other thing I wanted to address is that, if there is an agreement, it sounds like you were reading off of an agreement for maintenance of the roads. That's my suspicion that that's part of the association agreement.
I was reading from the Plymouth subdivision laws that you guys have posted on the website.
I have the reference.
It says subdivision regulations for the town of Plymouth, New Hampshire. And I was reading right off of that.
It's under Article 1.
So subdivision regulations are our guidelines for accepting subdivisions and do not have the same legal binding quality as, for example, the zoning regulations.
Right.
The zoning ordinance.
The point I was going to bring up is that on private roads, there still has to be an agreement for maintenance of private roads. And if there's been if someone's broken that agreement, that's a civil issue not enforceable by the town, in my assessment.
But could the town not say, hey, we want to stand up for the residents and we want to see this resolved before approving this project moving forward, or no?
Not.
Chattering too.
I can't speak to that.
I can just tell you guys that we don't control TMA right now. We're working with the team to try to figure how it's going to work, everyone together. And the roads are a top priority to me personally, and we have to look at what's going to happen. The roads, the water, and the sewer have all been neglected again for 30-plus years. How long you guys owned your houses? I've owned Tenny for 9 months now? We're making pretty damn good progress in 9 months. The roads are top priority, so we need to solve for that ourselves. We need to work as a team. So you guys will be part of it. It's not buzzwords, it's not bullshit, it's reality. We're working with the folks who've currently been in charge, and we're trying to figure out how we can get a path together, but it's not as simple as you might think. There's a whole lot of legalese that gets involved, and we're working with people to try to straighten that out. And once that's resolved, we'll start putting a plan in place, and I'm spending the money. I'm spending the money on the engineering and the design to then figure this stuff out. So I don't want you to think we're not taking it serious. Our hope is that you guys do grow your families. You can get up to the mountain, your daughter can grow up skiing in the mountain and become a tenny girl, so that's the hope.
I would just ask that in the future, moving forward, I would think that there would be some sort of pitched plan instead of just saying in the future I'm going to be 60. So in the future we talked decades of degradation, decades of mishandling, failed operations at the mountain. I would just we're offering season passes now. We don't know if it's going to be open next season. Like who's going to buy that? So I think it makes sense. I'm excited. I grew up snowboarding. I love snowboarding. I couldn't have bought a more convenient location. I can walk there after work if I want to. I really want to see the mountain succeed. I'm just curious, what a 10 to 20 year timeline looks like, a roadmap with major milestones, so we can get behind it. There's been a lot of distrust in the community that this mountain can be successful. Another influencer from down south shows up with a bunch of money. Unfortunately, money doesn't fix problems, obviously, or else the road would be in good condition.
Before we say down south, I've been in New Hampshire. I got businesses up here for 20 years. We've been working in New Hampshire, so I'm very deeply rooted to the community. I have a house in Wolfboro, so I've been up here for 28 years with my wife, vacation till we bought. So we're very much part of the community, and we put $1.5 million into just the snowmaker, which no one else has ever done. Okay, fixing the mountains, all the sins that have been on there. There's a lot of inherited sins, including the roads, but also on the mountain. No one's done that before.
Okay.
So pure cost, just buying the snow guns.
Okay. We do have
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Oh, I was just going to say we have a lot
I
of.
just want to say the side conversations are really difficult from a remote
Oh,
board member.
if-
or a remote.
When you do speak, please make sure you're as close to that microphone as possible over there.
Sure.
So we do have a lot of people to hear from probably tonight, and it is getting rather late, and
I'm sure I will be quick. I'm Nancy Dyer, and I live on Sam Hall Road, and I too love it there, and we're really excited about the ski area. My concern is about drainage, and I know that you talked about the redirection of stormwater, and also there was some mentioning about the Tenny Brook area. I live about 800 feet downhill from the mountain. And we've done a lot of work, like Sam Hall Drive, is perpendicular to Tenny Mountain Road, or Melvin Road, or whatever you want to call it. And we've done work redoing some culvert work on Sam Hall Drive in order to alleviate some of the drainage problems that have occurred from water coming down. And we're able to hold it at bay most of the time. Occasionally, it still will go over Sam Hall and create a frozen dam, which sometimes makes it impassable. So I'm really concerned about additional water, storm drainage or whatever, being diverted down the mountain, because we have the Tenny Mountain Road on one side, and then Tenny Brook abuts my property on the other side. So those were my two concerns: water.
thank you.
Do you want to entertain responses, or do you want to just take comments for now?
It might be good to take several comments for now and save some responses for later. And perhaps, given the difficulty of using that microphone, it might be best for all responses and comments to come to the lectern. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else would like?
I do have a question, though.
Yes.
I just wondered, when you talked about Tenny Brook, will there be any impact on Tenny Brook at all from this construction?
If you want to come up to the lectern and address that quickly, like in a minute or so, or not at the moment.
If I can summarize it, I mean, we have seen plans that show that the foundation, the building foundation is going to replace a deck foundation that is adjacent to that area. But based on what the plan they've submitted, I mean, there might be some, working around that area. They're going to have, machines, but let's. I don't know. My thinking is if we can keep going with questions and
be careful
let the
saying too much for the
deal with
applicant.
that. Yeah, I don't want to speak for the applicant. That's for sure.
All right,
but we do have plans that show work in that area.
Are there any comments about the drainage, redirecting of the drainage?
I do want to. I think there are. We've talked about this a little bit already, and I think this is going to be an issue that's going to come back in our discussions. Okay. I know it's in my notes to kind of return to this issue.
Right. Neil mentioned a SWIP, which is a stormwater prevention plan.
Okay,
so
thank you very much.
Those are elements.
I think we all have these sorts of questions. Yes. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the public?
My name is Chris Long, and I live up on Tenny Mountain in Eagle's Nest. I am also the president of the Tenny Village Condo Association. We have 87 units in our association. There is a second association called Tenny Brook One, and we're totally separate and apart. Ours are the so-called Tenny Mountain Gray. We have units both above the lodge and below the lodge on Davis Road or on Tenny Mountain Road. We support the project and would ask that you approve it. We had a board meeting this week and discussed the implications, the plan. We do have some concerns, and I was going to kind of run through them. I know this is kind of running on a little bit, but interestingly enough, when I got here tonight, one of my fellow board members, Kathleen Berrio, sent you an email which lists 5 concerns, and those are the same ones I was going to address. And there's ones you already heard about tonight, such as roads and the impact of the water and sewer. I've been meeting with Steve Kelly for, I don't know, probably I met him over the summer, and we've had multiple meetings, and I have full faith in his project, and while it may take time, all of these concerns, I believe, will be addressed. I just wanted to comment on some of the comments made by people who live up there. We do have an association of which the ski area is a part of. It was set up, it's called Tenny Mountain Association. It was set up back in the 80s by the original, I don't know if it was the original developer, but it was set up in the 80s. The Tenny Brook One is not a part of it, and none of these folks who live on Sam Hall are a part of it. They don't contribute to the road maintenance, to the road plowing. They don't contribute to any of that. And then I get an email from our property manager. Got an email from Mr. Van Scooter and asking us to repair his road. It's not a part of our association. I don't know who owns it, but it's certainly not a part of our association. Hopefully, someday we will all be part of that association. That's exactly what Steve Kelly's been talking about, that we've got to work through these old, poorly written documents. And I've lived up there for 8 years now. I've been on the board for 3 years or so. And that's something we're going to work through. But it doesn't happen overnight.
And there's a separate process from this process here.
Right, absolutely. But I figured since people were talking about it, I'd chime in. So, I mean, I think if you take a look at these, those are our concerns in her email. But again, I don't think that these are open-ended issues that, in the overall scheme of things, will get fixed. And when I look at our roads are terrible. But when our association, the units were built, it was in the mid-'80s, and I assume the road was put in sometime before that. It was never finished. They put in an original coat of asphalt. Who knows what the foundation looks like? It's probably not built to anything close to current standards, but the second coat wasn't applied. And if you're familiar with Tenny Mountain, that was originally in the 80s. They were planning on building 1,100 condominium units. Part of our association, TMA, which takes care of the roads, it's my association, our 87 units. It's the ski area and 2 other houses that are right next to the lodge. That's it. And quite frankly, we don't have the money to. We've got more than 2 miles of roads that really need to be replaced. And
for the sake of time in a late meeting, it's a little bit kind of it's important, but it's a little bit off topic to the question of approval here.
We support it. We ask you to approve it tonight if you can.
Thank you.
Hi, Olga Harris, 97 Tenny Mountain Road. House has been there since, 1969 when my parents built it. And the road has been horrific forever. And a lot of people talk about it, makes it sound like it's just about inconvenience and, it's a bumpy road. In January 2020, we called the Plymouth police to do a wellness check on my brother who was living in the house. I'm sorry, I might get a little emotional here. It took us 2 hours to find out that he died in that house because they couldn't get through the roads. And thankfully, to the fire department, who got it open so that the police could get in there. These are people's lives. That is inhuman and unconscionable that a family has to live through something like that. There are others that are present here who've had medical issues we've talked about it being impassable during storms. This is not about who owns it and who doesn't own it. This is a serious issue. And if the only thing I have to deal with is going over a bumpy road, I wouldn't be here tonight. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak or ask any questions? Yes.
Hi.
John Kilgo. I've been on Tenny Mountain since 1967, on and off, and the road has been nothing but an on and off disaster. I appreciate what they're planning to do. It'd be great to make it very successful up there, be successful for the community. But sticking a $30 million facility up there and having that access, there's other things that have to be done, but not having the appropriate access, it almost appears like it's going to be the same situation that's happened when other owners have come in. But I still think as a site plan review, you have to take into consideration that access up to there, because as they build on that, that road's going to get worse, and there's more liabilities for everyone involved, emergency services and for customers driving up the road. At least you could put some sort of requirement on coming forward when they're going to do the road. That would be appropriate. But I still think that there's a connection between the road and the site plan review.
No, and just to clarify, I'm not saying there's not an importance for the roads in terms of access to this development. And just in terms of our process, what we're considering is the impact on the development and not on the other property owners, no matter how important that may be in another context.
Access roads, the whole place. Have you driven on all those roads?
Oh,
Okay,
I've
understand.
Felt like, yeah.
I've been taken off in an ambulance before. I'd hate to go out there from a ski injury, have someone. Again, it's a liability for everyone. But I'd like to maybe find out, when is there going to be some road work done? Because when they start the construction, roads are going to get worse.
I remember my first time there, I followed my Google directions and never again.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Of both, sorry, are you done? I didn't
All
mean.
set, thank
No,
you.
I had a question for Mr. Longworth, the developer. Is Davis Road the preferred access, the legal access to this, to the lodge?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Two quick points, I promise.
Yep.
So just kind of to touch on what you just said, if that's the preferred access, I'm not sure why the snowmobile trail doesn't go that way, since they're directly benefiting from the snowmobiles visiting the top of the mountain. And they mentioned a timeline, long lead times for a generator and for the switch gear, approximately April of next year. What are we doing in the meantime? There's other things that could be done while you're waiting for things to show up from wherever you've ordered them.
Thank you.
Just to address the last 2 points, we don't control anyone in snowmobiles. I don't know who the hell they are, where they come from, where they go and don't go. I don't make the maps, so that's not in our control. I've owned this mountain for, 8 months now? So people complaining and putting the responsibility on us for the roads, we're going to fix the roads. But to expect us to have done something sooner when we don't even have legal control of it is ridiculous. Someone doesn't understand the process. If we don't have legal control of something, we can't do anything. So people should be educated on the process if they want to start to associate blame and responsibility. Obviously, it's tragic, the story we just heard about, the gentleman who passed away and couldn't get, emergency service for that person. We have it in our top priority of our plan. We don't have a schedule yet. We don't have control of that process yet. How the hell can we have a schedule? So people should be educated on the process before they start to establish unrealistic expectations. We will have a plan. Once we figure out that plan, we'll publish that plan. We don't have the plan yet, so we can't publish it. I'm not going to pretend or announce something that I cannot guarantee. When I know something with conviction, then I'll let the town and all the residents know that. Until then, I'm not going to talk about what if potentials, because it might not happen. So that's just the way I operate. So I can only tell the whole team, the whole community, that that's a high priority to us, and that's all I can tell you. Until we have a solid plan, I have control of the land, then I can't do anything. So that's fairly common sense to most people. So as far as the drainage goes, what exists today is in serious disrepair. We have an engineer working on an engineered solution that will have stormwater prevention solutions and everything we're talking about. So it's only going to improve what is happening today. Everything we're changing is going to be engineered to have proper drainage to improve everything that's happening on those roads today. We hope to have a road plan worked out as quickly as possible. What does that mean? I have no idea. I don't control the property yet. Till we have better control where we can actually start putting real planning to it, we can't establish those guidelines, all those parameters. But it's not tied directly to the lodge.
Although insofar as you're impacting water flow through your development, and even if it's impacting it for the better, that still needs to be understood. 100%,
but I'm saying we're engineering. There is no engineering up there right now. There isn't really no stormwater prevention up there. It's very weak and antiquated. We're actually putting a program in. So, I mean, I understand the frustrations of the residents, but we haven't been up there for 20 years, 5 years, been up for 8 months. So we're working on it.
Is that just drainage or?
I'm curious about the drainage. No, go ahead. You're good. We've got your engineering plans.
So, right now, as you heard described out there, pretty much all the drainage from that lodge or from the area where we're working in just kind of goes down to the pavement. It sheet drains right across Davis Road. It finds its way right down Tenny Mountain Road. So I don't know where it goes after that, but it's totally believable that this drainage problem is caused by that. So one of the opportunities we have working on the uphill side of Davis Road right there is we are putting that green strip in. We are taking out pavement. So in that area up at the kind of top north end of our parking lot, we have that big open area. If you look at our grading plan, you'll see we have a depressed area there. So we are directing all the stormwater from the lodge, from the parking lot that we're building to that area. So we are capturing all that. That's all runoff that's now going down Tenny Mountain Road, and we're rerouting that over to the drainage swale and the drainage culvert that's under Davis Road into its historic and where it wants to get to directly to the channel. So we have the opportunity there to slow down that water. So we do have, it's going to be definitely an improvement. We're not touching the main parking lot on the other side of the road as part of this development, but we're certainly intercepting any of that stormwater that's coming off the mountain, coming off the lodge area, picking that up and diverting that so it won't be going down. So that is the one significant improvement we're doing for drainage out there. I just, since I got the microphone for one more second, I just wanted to, a lot of these comments are stuff that I think Steve has addressed. They're bigger picture items. Like I mentioned to you, we're hyper-focused on the lodge. And I want to circle back around to landscaping because I knew folks were struggling with that at the time. From my perspective, if there's a way that we can get to an approval, I think we're going to be taking this entire year to finish development and design of a master plan. I'm not going to speak for Stephen as to when we'll be back to you folks, but he has engaged us. He has authorized us to move forward with wetland mapping, environmental studies, and further survey as soon as the spring breaks. So he is highly focused on that as soon as we get through this step. It's winter time, so there's only so much we can do during the winter for gathering data, but that is what he has us onto immediately as soon as we can. So I do expect we're going to be back before you folks. We certainly could come back for a compliance hearing. I'm sure it's not something that you folks regularly do, but bring a further plan to this. If you do want to see a landscape plan, if we could have a condition that just be provided as part of the condition of approval to meet the regulations, I'd be happy to come back to a public meeting if we needed to present that. If you do want to have your consultant engineer take a look at our stormwater design, absolutely, that'd be something we could agree to, working out any comments that he may have on that, addressing any issues. We have some flexibility there. So anything you can do to help us, if you're ready to move in that direction, I think we can agree to, I guess, and agree to come back if we need to as part of that compliance hearing.
Did you see me starring that on my notes?
I did not. So, thank you.
Thank you. I am interested in the possibility of having the town engineer look at the plans.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just curious more about, are there more members of the public?
The public hearing is still open.
Actually, can we hear from the assistant fire chief?
Yeah, do you have anything to add?
I was just curious about the
access
to on the proposed fire lane to the building. Has your team
you're talking
been
about
able to
the access lane that goes right up against the building? Is that
against the retaining wall? Actually, yeah.
Yes, that's the one I'm thinking of. Then, yeah.
Am I correct in saying there's a retaining wall that it goes up against?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Kelly approached us with his design team. He approached me about probably a month ago and asked for input. I told him what the code was, which was 20 feet wide, blah, blah, blah. Presently, as it sits now, if you guys are familiar with it, it's a very sharp, steep turn to get up there. I don't know if you've seen my fire trucks lately, but they're big.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And my drivers are good, but it's to the point where it's testing their abilities. So they actually offered a correction. Their initial correction was to go further at a lesser grade and longer. With my calculations and the way I designed it, it actually matched up perfectly, so we have no problem with it.
And you're okay with not having a turnaround at the top, having to back down
Nope.
after they're done?
It's a straight, if you look at how it is, it's pretty much straight down with a minor curve at the end at grade. So it's almost impossible. I'm sorry, isn't me?
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah, if there really is nowhere to put a hammerhead or a cul-de-sac in.
Okay.
So this is the best case situation for the bad hand, if you will.
And just to address a broader issue, do you feel that the broader access to the site is safe?
Water?
No,
sorry.
the broader
Oh.
access, not just within
Davis
the
Road.
narrow site, but
Davis
getting
Road.
to the site from the highway.
Not Penny, not the offsite road, but Davis Road. Can you get up there?
Davis Road?
Yeah.
I will not put my truck up there spring or fall. The same could be said for Texas Hill. We don't put our truck up there unless it's on fire and confirmed, because it will get stuck. It's the same argument I heard.
Even Davis Road?
Davis Road's rugged. So,
That's paved, isn't it?
oh, Melvin. Yeah, Davis Road, yeah. Yeah.
No,
I drove
Davis
my-
Road is the one that goes around.
What's the road off Davis Road at the top?
Davis Road goes straight up.
I put,
No.
my guys went up there the other day for a fire alarm and they drove right
Not
up it.
Tenny Mountain or Tenny Brook.
Davis Road
yeah.
goes the loop around.
Yep. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I drove it the other
Melvin
day.
Road goes straight up.
Melvin Road is really the heart of Melvin Road is at the top where all these residents live, you know.
Where it's private.
And we actually go up and around to access those. We actually went up there during a snowstorm. December,
so
January.
you can go up and around.
We go up and around and come down to those roads.
That was my concern.
We don't drive up to it. That's a
Yeah.
standing order from me. And the reason being is it's easier to access going down than it is coming up. So we have ways. Those roads have always been concerning for. I've been here all my life, so yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else I can answer?
Thank you.
I do want to point out the water system. That's always been a concern of the fire
The
department.
supply or the drainage?
The supply.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's the concern with supply?
The concern is it's unstable and undependable for fire access for the hydrants up there presently. And Mr. Kelly and we've been working with the water department trying to find plans because no one knows what the flowage. They're working on to correcting that, and that's a
So if they're planning on sprinkling the building, is there a plan for a cistern or a tank in the building?
They're fixing the water system. That's part of the whole process for them to sprinkle it.
They have water tanks up on top of Eagle's Nest.
Yep, they do. The question is the pipes.
Are they accessible to the lodge?
Yes, they are. That's how their lodge is fed. So, from a fire suppression standpoint, fire trucks, we pull out 2,000 gallons a minute out of some of those pipes. So it's just they're working on correcting that, and I just want to give my support for that.
All right.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
That's important to me.
Just to add on to that, that is part of the engineering survey we're doing. When we hire the consultant, look at the water in the sewer. It's from the water tanks all the way down.
These are all site-related issues too, which is part of why I was asking about regarding the site plan. They're not shown on this because they're existing.
Right.
We recognize that you're only showing elements of the plan that are really changing.
So there's two
It's hard to document.
tanks up there. I think it's just so people don't know, right? So there's a huge volume of water. We just need to make sure it's flowing properly, and whatever we have to fix, we're gonna fix. But again, we don't know that yet. We haven't engaged the engineers yet.
Right. Thank you. All right.
How are we feeling at this point?
I'm leaning towards conditional approval.
You want to close the public hearing?
Let's just kind of hold off a moment. I'm curious if we want to consider, do we want to have the engineer look at the drainage issues?
Yes, I think that can be part of the conditions of approval.
That would be a condition, okay.
I think this is a pretty big project to move ahead with. What seems like would be quite a few conditions. More so than I think I might be comfortable with.
So Rebecca, can you speak to what you would like to see if we didn't move ahead with a conditional approval this evening?
Well, I would like to see the engineer's report. I think stormwater is an important issue that we haven't talked. I mean, we've talked a little bit about, but making sure that drainage, obviously there's some existing conditions there, but there's also a pretty significant amount of square footage being added to that building and a significant amount of impervious surface being added as well. So making sure that drainage is good. I'd still like to see a landscaping plan. So those are two.
Okay, thank you.
As a point of order, John, I would, whether we table this or continue it,
Yeah.
we still can close the public
yes.
hearing, and it would, if we continue, or we approve.
Continue. If we're not going to approve it, we should continue.
If there's no more comments, I
Yeah,
think we need to close at least the public hearing, and then bring it back
one comment.
for discussion.
Yes.
My name is Michael Brooks. I live on Tenny Mountain in Eagle's Nest, number 16. I'm at the bottom of the mountain. Chris Long is the head of our condo association, and he spoke to the concerns well, I think. I just wanted to say I'm in a butter. I look at the lodge every day. I look at the lifts every day. I'm happy that this is going on. I share all the concerns about the roads and the water, but I would like to see this progress. Thank you.
Thank you. I risk of speaking for the board. I think most of us would like, all of us would like to see this progress. It's a question of how to safeguard everyone in the process, including the town, the residents and the taxpayers, and make sure the environment's protected and downhill residents from potential changes to water flow and such.
I'm going to try this.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it.
And see where we land.
Are you going to propose a conditional approval?
Yes. Are you okay with that?
Should we close the public hearing, or?
If you're good with that.
It is currently 9:26, and I will close the public hearing.
I'm going to offer the following findings of fact. This is a site plan to enlarge an existing building. And that the majority of the development is to the north. There's a small impact on the southern edge of the building where, I'll leave it at that. Since this is a finding of fact, it should be brief. I would say that the second finding of fact is that we have elements of drainage plans and the applicant has indicated they can provide a stormwater pollution prevention plan and a landscaping plan. And that the elements of our site plan, the third finding of fact is that the elements of our site plan application have largely been met and will be met with a conditional approval that I'm going to offer. Is that clear enough, Joseph, for findings of fact, since we'll have to note those?
Yeah, we will.
Should we add that we also have elevations, building design?
We do. We have architectural plans,
lighting
we have site
plans.
plans.
We have all those plans
Yes.
presented to us.
Have the engineers review.
Yeah, so my condition, I will offer approval with the following conditions. The board, the applicant should provide escrow funds in the amount of $1,800 for the town's engineer to review plans. The applicant should provide a stormwater pollution prevention plan and a landscaping plan to supplement the documents we have, and then that those should be reviewed by the town engineer. The applicant shall execute a development agreement with the town and provide funds in escrow to allow for construction inspection by the town's engineer. I'm going to pause and ask for a clarification. Joseph, was the 1,800 meant to cover that, or?
I think that was separate.
No, the 1,800 is the escrow
Review.
for the plan review.
Yeah. I imagine the other number.
I'm going to propose an escrow amount of $2,500. If that's okay, anything that's not used would be returned if more funds are available.
Should this be negotiated with the planning department?
Well, okay. The amount of the escrow can be negotiated with the planning department when they execute the development agreement. The third condition of approval is that the applicant will need to meet the requirements of the water and sewer district regarding the condition of the existing drainage. And the fourth condition is that, this is kind of a standard of condition of approval must be met within 12 months. Active and substantial development shall begin within 2 years of the date of the approval. Extensions may be granted in both cases, but you must request them of the board before the 12-month, or before the expiration of the previous conditions. The threshold for active and substantial development is defined in the site plan review regulations, section 6B. Unless the board chooses to a different project-specific threshold. Would the applicant like to request a different timeline for meeting conditions of approval at this time? It sounds like you're in a hurry anyway.
That's all set.
Okay. So those are my 4 conditions of approval as proposed, and that's a conditional motion for conditional approval.
That was just 4?
It was just 4.
Second.
I lost track at some point. That's right.
I'll run through those with you if that's
please.
good, just to clarify. So to provide escrow funds in the amount of $1,800 for the town's engineer to review the plans, and did that include meeting the requirements of the review?
Yes.
An applicant should provide stormwater pollution prevention plan and landscape plans.
That was 1B. But yes.
Okay.
That's just 1B?
1A.
Sure.
Call them 1 and 2.
Okay, you can call it 2.
So escrow, provide funds in escrow and execute a development agreement providing for construction inspection by the town's engineer.
Yep.
Meet the conditions of the Plymouth Village Water and Sewer District.
Yes.
And then conditions must be met within 12 months, and development should begin within 24 months unless extended by the board.
Unless an extension was granted upon request by the
We
applicant.
recounted this as 5.
Sounds good.
Okay.
The stormwater pollution prevention and landscaping.
2, in
being
fact, has like kind of 2 components to it, which is the landscaping and
Stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to give conditional approval with the 5 conditions so noted for this application. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have some discussion.
Yes.
That's fine.
So I'm not opposed to the conditions, and I am all in favor of doing what we can to help this development move forward. And I enjoyed the presentation. And it was, but I am concerned about Melvin Road and the developer who's proposing a $30 million building on the hill is saying that they're not going to use Melvin Road, but Davis Road to access for building. And we understand Davis Road is under-maintained, but that Melvin Road is in really tough shape. So we heard all these comments, and, I got to laugh because of the hearing that we just had, that we're doing a site visit with, I guess it depends on who your neighbor is and who's against it, but I am just concerned about Melvin Road being used at some point, and how, if it does become in more disrepair because of this, how we can limit the use of it during construction, how we could, is there another condition that could set money aside?
So looking at the town tax map, Melvin Road stops at the bottom of parcel 7. So that's the town road. Anything above that is a private road. It happens to be on a parcel that this developer owns, but it's not it's not related to this development. It's a separate lot. They're not proposing to do anything on that lot. I don't think we can make conditions on this application affected to an off-site road.
It's a really unfortunate situation for that road, but it is
I agree.
seemingly a different, yeah.
I heard Mr. Kelly say that it's his intention to replace the stream crossing across the brook that goes to Tenny Mountain Road, or above Melvin Road.
Maybe we should clarify if he's proposing to do that as part of this project.
Can I ask you a question, Phil, about your motion quickly?
Sure.
So we said execute a development agreement and provide escrow funds for construction inspection. Sometimes as a part of that, we do a reclamation bond. Was it your intention to include that or not?
No.
Okay.
Not on this one.
Okay.
So next question is, when people arrive at Tenny Mountain to ski this winter, is anybody using Melvin Road? I mean, is there anything to prevent them from using it?
Yeah.
They got a Jeep.
I mean, if someone knows the answer, would the chair be willing to allow them to answer?
I mean, I don't know that it's really fully germane here. There is a usable access road that is the preferred road, and again, I think the situation on Melvin Road is bleak, but I'm not certain it really holds up this particular site plan. I mean,
Based on the comments we received from Mr. Long, the ski area and the condo association are part of an association that does maintain roads that get there. That covers us. I don't think we can require off-site improvements as part of this. I mean, that's a separate lot. It could be owned by anybody. I think to require an improvement to that road by this project is, I don't think we can request
Is
that.
any part, what part of Melvin Road, again, is town road?
I'm not sure if the tax map is accurate, but Melvin Road, when I look at the tax map, it shows Melvin Road coming up, and it goes parallel to Mayhew Turnpike. But then when it turns to go west up the hill, I think that's where it becomes private. If the tax map is accurate.
Where the washout is. Can I get clarity to this? Can I speak to get clarity to help you guys? I mean, I live up there.
I mean, just before you do, I'm not sure. I'm not certain if. I mean, do members of the board want this clarification?
I guess where are we going with this?
Melvin Road is a town road.
Yeah.
It's dead end.
Yeah, it does dead end. Sorry.
I'm very sympathetic to people who rely on Melvin Road, and at the same time, I'm not certain we can really tie these two things together. Not because I don't want to, or what's that?
Well, Mike brought up a good point that we should consider.
Can I answer his question?
You may.
We put a sign.
Actually, can you go to the podium?
Speak right here.
Oh,
We
that's
put
fine.
a sign, big 8-foot sign, down on Mayhew Turnpike with a giant arrow saying Tenny Mountain, about a mile this way, right at the gas station. Directs everyone down the main entrance where the giant Tenny Mountain Resort sign is, which brings people up, and then a sign that directs people up Davis Road to the resort. So we direct the visitors to Davis Road to get to the resort. Now, human error, can I tell you, every person doesn't go up Melvin Road? I don't know. These guys pulling guys out.
You can't
cars
stop
out.
locals from taking it if they know it's there, right? And I mean, if you own the property and you want to block the road off, that's your right, isn't it?
We could, you know. But I mean, I don't disagree. These guys have probably pulled guys out in
Unless
trucks.
it's
We
deeded,
have
I
to
don't
do a
know.
lot, you know?
Maybe.
He's talking about the private, where Melvin meets Mayhew Turnpike.
So
Right. But what I was suggesting is the tax map shows Melvin Road coming up and then Tenny Mountain Road going west from there. But Tenny Mountain Road is on a private parcel. I assume that's a private road unless someone has an easement over it, which is possible.
There's 200 feet of private road there that's actually, if you look at some of the old maps, it's actually supposed to be terminated. It's actually a dead end, Melvin. And then the next 200 feet that's really rough is supposed to be a section terminated. And then Tenny Mountain Road actually begins at the beginning of the entrance and goes up and across the bridge and up to the lodge.
Yeah, okay.
So,
anyway, you can bring up a good point.
Well, we've heard a lot of comments about the folks that live on Melvin Road, and I'd like to know, how much traffic are they seeing for people that are going to where the ski lodge is now to ski?
Every day. I see people take that road up to go skiing every day. And I've pulled 2 people out myself. I was late to work because I did it, because I'm a good person.
And I applaud the sign, I've seen it, it's great.
Signs don't help not smart people. Always say that.
When we plow the snow, you can't see the sign.
Yeah. The town plows the snow up and it blocked. It just said Tenny Mountain and it blocked the arrow.
So I don't want to get us into a public
I get it.
debate again.
And I think what they were asking for is, I think it's reasonable, they want to know when, some sort of plan, whether that road will be ever access that lodge, continue to access it now, whether there's a plan, is there any timeline, or is it just we want to work with the 3 different entities to fix it? And
So I think we've heard this concern, and we've also heard counter concerns to this, and it's getting late, and I'm not sure how long we want to debate this. I will also say personally that these are some pretty large conditions we're putting on this, which might sometimes be handled in a continuation. I don't think they're beyond my threshold, but I kind of pushing at the limits.
We have a motion on the floor.
We do, and we're discussing that right now. That has not escaped my...
If the board is uncomfortable with my motion, you can vote it down.
No, I know we can.
Continue
I know.
hearing.
I'm in favor of the motion and going forward. I just would love to have some sort of more thought going into Melvin Road rather than nothing for them.
And I would too, and I think it's a separate issue from what we're dealing with tonight.
Yeah, and I also look at the continuation we did on that small 3-lot subdivision. And so I'm all in favor of pushing this forward. I just want to make sure we realize the hearing before and now.
Mhm.
And again, I want to see it go forward tonight. I'd like to see it pass. But I'd also like to see, I wish there was a way that the folks that live on Melvin Road don't see a $30 million project up there, and then there's more traffic without anything being done.
So,
Can I comment on that? Without building, expanding the lodge.
You can finish your comment briefly, then Rebecca.
Use the mic.
Yeah, please speak into the mic, though.
Sure. Without building a lodge, we're not driving revenue, we're not making more money that allows us to reinvest into the property. This whole thing is orchestrated so we can reinvest in the property, grow it, okay? Fix the roads, fix the water, fix the sewer, and grow the property. Okay, this all works hand in hand. We're not doing anything against the community. We don't, again, I must reiterate this, we do not have control of the roads right now. I can't fix a road I can't control. So let's let the board understand that. Assess the tax maps and see really how much that 200-foot section actually impacts what we're talking about today. It's actually a separate parcel, to your point. All right, so it's on the plan. I can't keep it because I don't control the roads yet. We're putting all that stuff together. We've been pretty damn good for the last 10 months since we closed on the property. I didn't even start this process till 8 months ago. So We're doing pretty good with where we're at. It takes time. There's other processes that have to happen, but we're committed to fixing the roads. We can't give you a date yet because we're not even there yet.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Okay,
Oh, sorry, Rebecca's up. Yeah.
You had a comment?
So I just want to kind of echo what Mike said, that we did continue a hearing for a subdivision earlier this evening. This would be the fastest I've seen us do a pretty significant site plan review. And as the developer said, it does take time, and I don't think that continuing the hearing tonight means that we're not moving forward. There's still forward progress. It's just we're making the best decision. We're taking the time to make the best decision, and it does take time. This is a long-term development, as we've heard tonight. This is going to be here for decades and longer. It's an investment in this community, and that means we have to take it seriously and take the time that we need to make the right decision. And if that means we need to think more about this road situation as well, that gives us some extra time.
Thank you, Rebecca. This is an excellent point. So we have a motion and a second.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
You may ask a follow-up question.
So this is a question for the developer that gets at the road. The only reason I ask is that your existing conditions overview plan does show potential future development on map 7, on lot 7, which is the other parcel. Do you see this one? My only question for you, this plan shows parking over here. That's existing. That's off-site. Is that existing? Here. This is your subject parcel. This is where you're doing the work. This is another parcel. This is lot 7.
This is all connected. See this road here? This is the supplemental parking we're talking about.
Oh, that's existing?
Yeah, that's existing.
Oh, okay, all
Existing gravel
right. My mistake then, I'm sorry. My only question was going to be that if there's future development there, would you address that road at that time?
So,
okay, thank you. That was my question.
I would anticipate, for what it's worth, addressing the roads as quickly as possible, because we know it's important to the community and to the success of the lodge. So it's probably the next phase. We have to get to that point where we're in control legally, we can do certain things, we can engage engineers, then start putting budgets to that, and then getting timelines on that.
So just one last comment from myself before I ask the question. These are a lot of big conditions, and there seems to be a whole lot of questions and discussion left at 9:45, which is when our meeting is supposed to end. And I am a little bit reticent to. So that being said, are we ready for the question?
I would like to add one more thing. And I don't know, I'd love to see this pass tonight with some conditions. I didn't know if there's any bone that the developer could throw to make Melvin Road passable in the spring to allow ambulances and fire trucks rather than having to come back around for life-saving issues.
You say in the spring.
In the spring,
I would.
to do a small amount of work to appease.
I'm uncomfortable with that question altogether.
You're what?
I'm uncomfortable with that request. It sounds like you're making it a condition of our consideration of this question, and that makes me really uncomfortable.
It would be called a, I forget the term, but if it doesn't get used by the town to help the road, then the money would go back to the developer. It's called,
Can I say the problem with that is, there's no engineering, which means even if you cut up the asphalt and put it back down, yet you didn't engineer properly, the stormwater hasn't been worked into it, we might have to run drainage under that road. There's stuff that might interfere, now you're wasting that money. Do I get that money back?
So I'm just going to ask, not to have a side conversation. So we have a motion and a second. Are we ready for the question?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay. Oops, I'm not supposed to say that, never mind.
All opposed? Nay?
Nay.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much, and best of luck, and thank you for hanging in there for a long meeting.
Thank you, and we'll do what we can to help the community.
Thank you.
And I really hope, I'm going to say to our planning department, I hope we're not putting too much on your shoulders.
Joseph loves it.
I am.
Okay.
We'll get it done.
Okay.
So,
You've got the
where the
town
hell are my notes?
You gotta finish our agenda.
You've got the town engineer to work with as well.
Yeah, the engineer.
So it is, I'm just going to move really quickly here. I just want to give a quick town meeting roundup. Of course, many of you probably know this already, our zoning amendments did all pass. I'll remind Mark and Phil reappointments if we haven't already, sent letters in. I think we might bump the site plan review regulation discussion since it's almost 10 o'clock now.
Late.
Remember, our next meeting is the April 6th. Our next meeting is the April 6th.
We will need a.
We're going to have these,
Community
this will
meeting?
be posted in town hall.
At the
This will
At
be
the
available
elementary
to the
school?
public.
You can keep the 11 by 17.
You can take one of each of these.
And lastly, if anybody's even listening to me.
I am.
Please go ahead.
Let's go.
I am, John.
Thank you. It just seems like a lot's going on.
Sorry.
I won't be here on April 6th.
Okay, thank you.
Put up with Zach.
For letting us know.
We'll manage.
PSU would like cooperation and that's what I'm looking for. It's late. It's been a long meeting.
Economic development.
For the economic development cluster project that they're launching, they
Collaboration.
want collaboration with potentially someone from the planning board and Mike.
I told Scott that I want to be on that
Okay.
committee.
I'm myself considering this. I don't want to take on too much extra volunteer work myself. I'm kind of pretty far extended at this point. However, also being PSU faculty, I've started conversations on the other side of this to see if there might be some collaboration on that side.
I nominate Mike.
Okay. Any discussion?
Although I encourage you to participate on the faculty side.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, did we miss you? Rebecca?
Nay?
Oh,
I thought I heard her say aye.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, opposed? Opposed?
Can I?
Oh.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Thank you.
Sorry, we're going fast, Joseph.
It's all right.
It's late.
It's all right. It's all on YouTube.
Abstentions? No? Okay. The motion passes. Congratulations, Mike.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait.
Non-debatable. Nobody seconded it yet, though.
Public comments. Are there public comments for those who are actually left at 10 o'clock at night, almost?
Mike can't hear.
Oh,
Thank you.
the Mike that volunteered.
The one who's still here and volunteered, but thank you for
I
clarifying.
have one comment.
Yeah, yes.
One question. Referring to the Melvin Road situation. I know there were some concerns by one of the people on the board. And I know that it says on the tax map that it might be a dead end. And keeping people from driving up that road, is there a sign at the beginning of that road that says it's a dead end? And if not, could that maybe be added to keep people from wanting to go up there to get to the mountain?
Board, but
I would think that if the landowner who owns the private road wanted that, they could probably request it of the town, but my understanding is, I'm not sure if they're, it's complicated because if there are people who have easements over that private road to get to their homes, then they can't. It's not up to us. And those easements, without knowing more about the property, we can't offer that.
But that is where the town road ends.
Right, but there may be, the people who live on Sam Hall may have easements up Tenny Mountain Road.
perhaps we can
which
advise Joseph to look into that or forward it to the appropriate.
I mean, if the selectmen wanted to put a dead-end road on the lower Melvin, no.
Yeah, I would say
Road?
signage issues, the planning doesn't necessarily,
No.
I don't, but, I think the select board or highway department could work together on.
There could be a private road sign at the bottom of where it turns from Melvin
Could
to
be.
Tenny Mountain Road.
And again, that's not our decision ultimately, but we can forward that concern along.
Some sort of signage can be put on that road to resolve this.
Private road, pass at your own risk. I mean, they could put that on their private property.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
Are there further public comments? Come on, somebody's got like 10 more.
Ryan, thank you for your comments.
You're gonna filibuster. All right.
That's it.
I think the more specific words are needed.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
See you, Matt. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca.
Motion to, we are adjourned. Have a great night.